Okay, can you hear me? Deb.
Yes, I can hear you, Jay.
Okay, because now the picture's gone off. I couldn't hear you. There's no sound.
Yeah, I'm having a problem too, so I'm going to have to interrupt them.
Okay. Okay. Come on.
I'm out. It was just a second, Diane. We'll learn our technology. Thank you, we're good to go. We're good to go? Okay, thank you.
Diane Sykes, for Chestnut Street.
I'm here.
Crescent. I would like to bring to the attention.
Just a little bit, Diane, please.
The comment I would like to make is that there was a news release, as everyone knows, and attached to that news was a report from FDLE, and I would like to remind the commission that that report is the answer until the 28th of February to verify their certification. So what is in that report is not fact until February 28th, when those records are produced.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any other speakers?
You said based on what now for speakers?
Anything that is not actually on the agenda, outside the agenda items. Did you have a question, Commissioner DeVito?
I have observation.
Okay.
It seems like somebody who's participating by video has a dog that we can audibly hear barking. And
That's
maybe
probably
communicate
Jerry.
with.
It's probably
I know, but
Jerry. Michael,
should
can you
not
mute
have
him? You wanted to hear that, didn't you?
Are you ready? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm concerned that, according to records, that the city was negotiating with the sheriff's office before there was any trouble with the police department as far as certification or accusations of. We have other things that we're not talking about. And that's the mishandling of the assault on one of our other officers. The fact that we have had a CRA position unfilled. The police chief position was sabotaged because it was only open for less than 10 days, up to 60 days or 30 days, whatever is usual. The fire director position is unfilled and to be contracted out, it looks like. The city policing, of course, is, you guys are looking to contract that out. City legal services contracted out of town firm and the commissioner's packets. You guys aren't getting these, my understanding, until the day before the meeting, which is phenomenal. That didn't happen when I was mayor, and that concerns me a great deal when you have such important issues in front of the city. So that concludes my observation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers? Okay. See no one else coming to the podium. At this time, we're going to move to our consent agenda. Do you have,
I have a question about the minutes.
well, that's what I was just about to bring up. The minutes of the previous meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections that you have?
Well, actually, I didn't, but now I do. I have a correction and a question.
Okay.
On
Where are
page, okay, on page 3,
Mhm.
the last page, there's 2 paragraphs there that they talk about scheduling future workshops.
Mhm.
I didn't notice, but they actually have the date of 2001, which obviously should be 2021. So that's just a minor correction. And the question I have is, on each of those paragraphs about scheduling the workshop, it says that they will be done in the second line with limited seating in City Hall and on Zoom. I don't remember that we said that. If the administrative assistant could check the tape, or if anybody else remembers. I mean, it may be what we're doing, but I don't remember that we set that at the meeting. And I would just say, Brett Peterson and I have not always gotten along. When he was on the commission, we had our moments, but I have serious concerns about getting a packet with minutes, 2 contracts, an ordinance, and the financials for the city the day before the meeting. That's right.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other changes to the minutes?
I make a motion that we adopt the minutes with the necessary correction.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second? A second?
Okay. All in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion, the minutes are approved. Okay, our next one of business is going to be the Finance Director Services. I'm going to turn this over to Michael.
Okay, so good evening. In our look, we know that our finance director will be retiring, and we have put a job advertisement out there, and we've had issues to trying to get someone to be a finance director. As I talk around the state and as I talk around other municipalities, they're also having problems finding people to fill financial roles, especially like a finance director. So one of the avenues that we talk to is that we talk to our finance auditors and we talk to other people. We were in touch with a company that actually provides finance directors to other municipalities. And right now in our transition, especially since Debbie's been working, Ms. Peacock's been on, multiple times she's delayed her retirement, and trying to keep that going and get some financial expertise on board. I was contacted by this company and we had discussed having a finance director come in for a contract with this company and provide those services for us. I actually have the gentleman here from the company that they would like to talk about their services and how they can help us. I think once you hear what they do, they also provide this for other municipalities. You get a better idea of how they can help our city. So,
Great, thank you for the introduction, Trustee Good. Good evening, Commission. My name is Andrew Laughlin. I'm the President and CEO of Clarion LLC. Just want to maybe spend just a few minutes talking to you about kind of what we do and how we provide finance directors services to municipalities in Florida. So maybe a little bit about myself. I grew up as an auditor, so I was an audit partner for a large regional accounting firm dedicated to Florida local government practice. Then I switched gears and started providing outsourcing consulting services to Florida governments, and then more recently started my own practice fully dedicated to this effort, where we go in. You're not the only ones that have these issues. We're finding and attracting and retaining talented individuals that exhibit leadership characteristics, the knowledge and expertise that go along with being able to manage the finance and accounting function of a municipality. So that's really the kind of mission statement of what we do and the bread and butter of our work. Currently, we've got multiple different governments in Florida, namely 3 different municipalities that we work with, providing this very function, as well as a large county that I predominantly work with. And we're happy to try to have the city of Crescent City on board to provide this service. What that looks like, again, we've got a team of outsourced finance directors that would come in, understand, get a lay of the land, understand the duties and responsibilities, and then provide those. So there'd be some on-site presence. We'd also have perform some off-site remote work, and then duties range from everything that's involved in the finance department, really. So from preparation of the annual adopted budget, preparation to the audit, day-to-day accounting functions, reconciliations, reporting, that sort of thing. We also have our own proprietary software that we use and have implemented with our municipalities that we work with that involves use of workflow and to move cities to a more paperless environment, help with transaction processing, create efficiencies, also a lot of dashboard reporting and providing financial information to both city employees as well as other constituents, stakeholders like yourselves and the general public. So a lot of things that we're capable of doing, we have the experience to do it. This is what we do. So we're really excited to be able to work with the city in the present, and hopefully you all feel that this is a good fit long term in the future. So that's kind of my pitch to you, and I'm happy to address any questions you might have about how this arrangement might work or anything like that.
What city do you have close to us?
Sure, we perform services for the Stark. So that's what's closest to you. Also the city of Dade City, so that's in Howard County, a little bit southwest, but not too far. So, I mean, like I said, that's really our bread and butter is those kind of smaller to mid-sized cities, maybe perhaps in more rural areas. Like I said, it is difficult to find and retain individuals that check all the boxes and meet those qualifications. So that's really what we do.
And Michael, can you share a little bit with us as far as, because Commissioner DeVito is correct. We're just kind of all trying to digest. It's all came up, I believe, last week, this week.
We've been talking about it, and now, especially now, trying to find and solve that problem. Debbie's now going on 2 months past where she wanted to be, and I think that we need to look at this and try to get those services. The idea here is that we would get a finance director through their company, and then there'd be a transition period to work with Debbie and understand what we do today to give us that period to move forward. So it wouldn't be like Debbie would leave and then, it would just be, they would just kind of figure out what we're doing. There would be a transition. So I think that'd be a good thing.
Commissioner DeVito, you have a question?
Well, I had a question for the representative from the company. And I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Andrew Laughlin.
Oh, okay, thank you for being here. So how long has your company in business doing this particular kind of work?
Sure. I've been doing this line of work and working with Florida local governments, municipalities for probably 15 years. I left a large national firm where I was doing this work to start my own practice for various reasons, a lot of which gives me the kind of freedom and flexibility to structure engagements, how I see fit best for us and for you from both a pricing perspective and level of effort. So I started my practice in July of 2020 with
Okay, so and when you say your practice, you mean a Clarion LLC
right.
with the contracting out? And, okay,
I was, this type of work for a larger firm previously.
oh no, I get that. I know you don't just jump up and all of a sudden start,
I don't want to just
being
decide
an
that.
accountant for a city, right? It's a very important function. I used to be very good friends with the chief auditor for the city of Tampa and worked with her very closely.
Okay, great.
Does your company have a brochure?
We do, so I could certainly send you something. We've got a website, we've got brochure, business cards, whatever information you want, I can sort of.
Okay, and you mentioned that you serve Stark and, did you say Pasco County or a city of Pasco County?
The city in Pasco County, city of Dade
That's
City.
fine.
And
Dade
then,
City,
and then
okay.
a couple entities in Pinellas County.
Okay, Pinellas, so just, and you mentioned you serve a large county, which one is that?
That's Pinellas County in the clerk's office.
Got it. Okay.
Do you have any other questions? You done?
Yeah, I have a question. How many years have you been in business? Just you without you?
How long have I been in business with my own
With
firm?
your-
That's been since, I broke away from the larger firm I was with and started my own practice in the summer of 2020. So it's been about 8 months.
And how many employees do you have working for you?
I've got currently, I believe, 5 individuals working for me on those engagements.
Because the reason I'm asking this is I watch Ms. Peacock work, she's got work to do. And already, how many people do you console right now? How many places are you doing this for? Approximately, I mean.
Sure, so there's 3 other cities, City of Stark, City of Dade City, City of Manure Beach, Pinellas County, and then others have been more kind of on a project basis where just come in and help us for this on a finite basis, and then leave. And that brings a point that I'd like to share. You're not getting locked into a 5-year deal, and this is what you're stuck with, looking at me for the next 5 years. Of course, I would love this to be a long-term relationship, but if you all feel longer term, there's so many, internally with this, somebody in the community that could be a good long-term fit, we'd be happy to help facilitate that transition, work with that individual. Obviously, we want to, be working with you as long as you have us, but within the contract, there's certainly a termination clause that allows you, if you feel it's in the best interest of the city, hey, we found someone internally that we want to put in this position. We'll help train that person, get that person as well acclimated and put in a position to succeed as we can. We just find it's difficult because there's a lot of boxes to check to be able to successfully perform in this role, and that's why the governments that we have worked with, some cities have taken hey, let's try this for a couple months approach, and then 8 months later, they're loving it, and they're still using our services for as long as we can.
Well, the data that you would take from Crescent City to manipulate for us every month or whatever, how long does that take to be put into a system so that it's actually usable for you to give us all of the information that you're saying? In other words, I'm not sure, is our software
How long
compatible?
before Debbie can walk out is what you're asking?
Yeah. Is our software compatible with yours? Debbie, can hand it over to you and say, here, stick it in there and you can go, or?
Yeah, sure.
Or is there something else that you
I think it was my
have to
preliminary discussions with the city manager. We were kind of looking at about a 30-day timeframe to soak up the knowledge from your incumbent. Don't want to keep her too long from walking those beautiful hallowed halls of retirement, so we don't want to keep her in a position for too long.
I don't want either, but, I'd like to see her.
We feel that in general, probably 30, give us 30 days to kind of get a real good understanding of the lay of the land. And ultimately, if there's a decision to move all finance and accounting functions to us, we can certainly handle that. But probably come back to you within that 30-day period, certainly working with the city manager to determine, okay, what's the best course of action here on how to move the city and give its best foot forward in terms of how to, manage the operations of the finance department. And if that's fully outsourcing all functions, if that's some things that will be done in-house, other things we take on. It's just a little difficult for me right now to give you a definitive roadmap and game plan because we haven't really sunk our teeth into it yet and haven't been on site. But if you're comfortable with at least having us move forward with this 30-day period, we'll have our consultants here starting next week and really try to develop that plan.
Can you kind of guesstimate how many hours you might be here on site?
As I told the city manager, we're looking at least for this 30-day period to have one or more of our consultants here 2 days a week. We feel that's necessary to gain that information from the income outgoing finance director and work with the team here. And on a longer term basis, really hard for me to say because we just need to understand kind of the ins and outs of and goings on of all finance and related functions here. But what I can commit to you, at least in the near term, is we'll be here on site a couple of days a week, every week, at least for the next month or so, to really get our footing and make some ultimate recommendations on how we best feel we can move forward with this in a longer term relationship. Of course, you all are interested.
Your bonding agency, you are bonding, the company, bonding the state of Florida.
We hold commercial insurance. We can use it and provide all of our documentation listing the city of Crescent City as an insured. We've had other clients that have requested that, and we're happy to provide that.
Okay, my other question is, if something come up in the middle of the week, and that's one of the days that you're present, we would have a line of communication.
Absolutely. Great question, and yeah, happy to address it. We're really 24/7, so while we may not have a physical presence on a given day, we are here. Some cities we have this email address, alaughlin@beachfl.gov. They email to that address. Others use our business clarity, like Stark does. But whatever day we have our cell phone, email, please call us, please email us. We're constantly available. So consider it as far as availability and ability to perform. It's a constant, 5-day a week contract as far as I'm concerned.
And my third question is, once a year, our government auditors, our auditors come in.
Sure.
And would you be available for questions and answers if they need something?
He's got that addressed in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I spent, I don't know, 17, 18 years of my career doing. So I come from an audit background. I know your auditors, James Martin Company, we've worked with them, the 2 other cities that we work with. So we know your auditors well, have a good working relationship with them. So absolutely, we will manage it from start to finish, help make sure it's a smooth process going forward.
Okay.
The insurance is also on page 3.
Do you have any other questions, Commissioner Banks?
Mayor, I do have a couple more questions.
Okay, can I ask?
Of course.
Debbie, I know we have our new software. Where are we currently in that, in the implementation of that?
We have finished payroll and accounts payable. We're still working on doing the purchase order section of it, but we have not done anything as far as fixed assets or cash receipts or utility billing. That's our next step, is utility billing. Also with this, we're going to have to hire somebody else to do the day-to-day work back there because that's not part of the finance. Transferring funds, matching up invoices, getting AP ready, even doing accounts payable. So So all of that is gonna be, somebody is gonna have to take care of that. So we'll have to have another person back there.
So we'd have to have a clerk in addition to, we need to hire a clerk, is what you're saying,
Yeah, we
Michael,
talked,
you,
yeah, so we talked about some part-time person that can come in and scan invoices, put them in certain files so that when the director's not here, that they can upload.
Wait a minute.
There's a whole lot more
Wait a
work
minute.
than
Well,
that.
hold on 1 second. Do you have a comment? Is there a comment? Are you having trouble hearing, Michael?
We can't hear us.
We're having trouble hearing everybody.
Okay.
The
Many of you don't even have a
microphone's already been on.
microphone and the others aren't
The
speaking
microphones,
into
they
it.
are on, I'm sorry.
Well, they need to get close.
So we're gonna have to
Oftentimes
fully-
it's the mask, so we're trying to,
We just gotta pull these closer.
okay, Michael, we're
So
having a
anyway,
hard time.
there is a lot to do, but that's one of the things in the transition period, we'll figure out how that gets done and the way it can effectively be done. So we are gonna need a person, they don't need to be finance heavy, somebody that maybe has a limited knowledge of finance, definitely helps. They'd be able to facilitate a lot of that stuff when they're not here, or even when they are here. And then we can kind of cross-train them into payroll and things that Mr. Walker does.
And my understanding is that you've worked with our software, is that correct? Maybe,
I use a combination of both your conversion Edmonds, which a little bit from a town I worked with a while ago, but it's been a little while. And then the other was your legacy software was like AMG or.
It was IMS, and we talked about, and that's another thing that we will go through the transition is he'll understand what he's pulling from the old system. And what he's going to the new system.
Yeah, we work with multiple ERP systems, accounting systems. So, you know, we're quick to learn and figure things out. Plus, with our proprietary software that we have that integrates with those systems. I mean, technology is a big part of what we do and paramount in understanding this for the next 30 days, especially if there's going to be off-site work. You know, we need to be able to have the remote access. So that's going to be a big push for us to make sure technologically we've got things in good working order, not only for us to be able to complete our jobs both on-site and remote, but also for you all to have accurate, reliable reporting data. And so we have a lot of cities with financial transparency and being able to provide good reporting to you all. So if you have questions on department and fund, we can do that quickly and readily. So looking forward to be able to work in that avenue as well.
okay, thank you. Commissioner DeVito?
Yes, I had a very minor question, but something that Ms. Peacock said, I have a major question. Just the minor question is, Commissioner Burton said, how many employees do you have? But, and I didn't hear the answer to that. Are your professionals, how many are there, and are they employees or are they contractors?
Currently, my staff are contractors.
Okay.
Again, my own business is 8 months old, so it's a bit in its infancy. Those that are helping are in a contractual role. I've contemplated the need for bringing on full-time employees as well. So my answer to you 3 weeks from now may be different than today based on the needs, but currently those that I have working for me are 1099 contractors.
And how many professional level contractors do you have? Okay. Referring to what Ms. Peacock said about an additional person would be needed and to be on the ground. And one of the things they do would be to transfer funds. I'm sorry, I have my back to you, Debbie. It's okay. To do the fund transfer between accounts. Did I hear you correctly?
Well, they will probably be responsible for that, taking over the banking and taking over the fund transfers. We'll just have to let them know when and, you know, how much we need to have transferred. Is that correct? Y'all would do the banking also?
Sure, we'll look at all the duties, and if everything finance related will fall on my firm, we can certainly do that. So we can have a back office individual that's responsible for the day-to-day transactional activity, making sure that it's properly recorded in the system. We can provide that. I think for now in the near term, the Debbie imminently retiring, we want to try to figure all that out, exactly what your needs are on a longer-term basis after her departure. So difficult for me to say, hey, can one finance director do it because we have enough, we've got sufficient support on site, albeit if it's a accountant one or a clerk or an analyst or a specialist that can do a lot of the day-to-day here, or if we need to bring that in as part of our service offering to have not only a finance director, but also available on a more day-to-day basis to be able to handle that, the volume of transaction activity, whether it's moving from balances from fund to fund, processing payable, AP, assisting with payroll, recording receipts, all those things. If that's needed as part of our service offering, we'll lay that out. That's what we intend to uncover in the next 30 or so days that we're working with you all.
Well, this, and that's very helpful, and you can see that you know what you're talking about. What concerns me is the calculation of the total financial cost to the city for making this change. If you looked at our budget, you know we don't have a lot of budget to spare. And it almost seems to me like a proposal like this is a consultant agreement, and it reads for a set amount per month for 2 years with the 3-month dissolution provision for your services. But the unanswered question seems to be additional services would be needed and at what level. And we don't know what that will cost us right now because we don't know what level and how much time would be required. I mean, in a way, it almost seems to me like instead of just a consult agreement, that there would be a different kind of proposal that would be based on a little more investigation that could come up with a more firm cost for us. And I don't know how you've done it for other cities. But the other two things I have on my mind are, normally if we were hiring a finance director, we would go through a battle process, we would have references and things of that nature. And I know that you do work for the city of Stark, but you're essentially going to take the place of our finance director, and it seems like somewhere in there, some of the same process should take place, that we should have references and those kind of things. But I'm concerned that the cost to the city is still somewhat open-ended, that we don't know what we are adding to our cost for our financial services. Even though we would be getting very good services from you, we don't know what that impact will be on our personnel budget.
Let me address that. So
Sure.
when we talk, first of all, whoever that would be here, we would get their credentials, we would get their bio, we would know who they are, you'd be able to do reference checks on them, things like that. Which people might get whoever is up today, it would be one person. The other thing is that fee was a flat fee per month for all of these services, for you to come in and say, this is what it's going to take to do this, correct?
Correct, yeah. So I can certainly elaborate, and very intuitive thinking and great questions that you pose. I wish I had a definitive answer of here's what the cost is going to look like longer term in the future, because I just don't know enough at this point, because we haven't been in the trenches, so to speak, to understand the breadth and depth of what's needed. So the finance director services is managing and overseeing the department. It doesn't necessarily entail, recording transactions on a day-to-day basis, booking payables, processing cash receipts from utilities, incoming receipts from police. Those would be duties that would be more of a analyst, specialist, accountant one, and we are certainly willing and able to provide that, especially if it's difficult to find someone with the kind of bookkeeping accounting background that might be needed to fulfill those obligations. And we can certainly provide that. So the answer to your question, might this agreement look a bit different a month from now, when Debbie's gone, and now, okay, how do we want to proceed as a city? Yes, that could look different, or you might bring someone in internally that has sufficient qualifications, knowledge, experience to be able to do those things, and we're in that oversight role. And that's where we would be limited as finance director, or we can, like we said, we can do it all and handle all of those functions. I think only time will tell in this next 30-day period, as I mentioned, will we be able to give you a full in-depth plan on, okay, here's what we see for the future, and here's what it's going to look like from a duty and responsibility perspective as well as a pricing perspective. And I know we're going to make this work for financially for both of us, right? We know we have a limited budget, and I'm respectful of that. That's part of the reason why I started my own practice, so I didn't have to fall within the confines of the rates and charges my old firm was charging, and this will need to be a discussion because we'd be priced out. So I'm certainly one for the long price, want to be as fair as possible. I just don't know enough yet to be able to give you a great answer on what the longer term future will look like. But it's all in your hands, and you guys, you all dictate, and we'll do our analysis and recommendations, and up to management and the board to ultimately decide the best course of action for the city.
We seem to be talking about trying to stretch out the financial side of it now, correct? So you said you'll come down in about a month time with us and see the scope of work that they're doing in the financial department. Then you'll be more apt to give us a price.
Correct, and maybe
at that time.
Maybe it's the same as it is now, which is finance director duties. We have enough infrastructure professional assistants in-house to handle all of the back-end duties, or maybe we need to add more to this contract to allow clarity to do that, because that's in the best interest of the city. I think those questions will be answered within that 30-day time period.
Yeah, because we really would need to at least know a ballpark figure.
Absolutely.
So we can put it in the budget.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And also, just to answer your question on qualifications of individuals assigned, I do have Mike Fitzgerald, he's here with me. You want to have him talk about his background. He's going to be one of the ones primarily who was here actually last week discussing the city manager. So between him and another individual that I provide his bio to the city manager, will be primarily responsible for this next 30-day period in which we'll do a lot of analysis and recommendation. Mike Fitzgerald's got 10 years city of Tampa. He's got CFO experience, so he's my top guy here in good hands with him. And like I said, he's here with me. He wanted to hear from him and all that. Rest assured, yeah, this is what we do, so we're experienced and we have just the background.
I just want to have a question. So for the 30 days that you're going to give us to figure out how much it is you're going to charge us, what are you going to charge us for that 30 days?
That's in the contract right now.
That's
so
$6,500.
That'll be the $6,500, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Which, if you count salaries and benefits of the current finance director, is about on par, so.
Michael, how long have we been advertising?
It's been 3 months now, 4 months we've been advertising for that position.
Okay. Have you had any applicants?
I haven't, I've talked to 3 or 4 individuals who I thought would be a good fit for this, but they told me for the money that the salary range we have, there was 2 issues. One, they're working for other municipalities that they don't have half the responsibility. They're getting paid more money. They don't have to travel here. So it's one of those issues that we've had. So if you wanted to even bump it up and say you want to put X amount more dollars into that, we're still, as Andrew has said, and other people have said, we're still having a problem in that we're trying to get finance directors who have that experience to be able to come in on the ground, hit the ground running, and be able to get up in a short 30-day training period.
And our goal here is to keep you cost neutral or even less, so understanding what salaries and benefits are of your current staff, we try to keep that in line.
So this is taking into consideration Debbie's her salary and her benefits.
Yeah, we kind of took the top of the range, because she's at the top of the range, the top of the range, added benefits on there. There's gonna be a little more, there's a lot more experience of somebody who comes in and says that they're a certified CPA, they have a bachelor's or master's degree, whatever that is, you know. If we go out there and we want to offer more money, you're going to be up at the top of what this would be.
Commissioner DeVito.
Yes, I'm looking at our budget and it doesn't actually break out Ms. Peacock's salary. One thing that I asked Mr. Esposito for yesterday, Scott, can y'all hear me? Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Okay. One thing I asked Mr. Esposito for yesterday was a breakout of what the actual cost for our current finance director position is, because that's a starting point. You know, if we don't know that, we can't tell how much additional the 6,500 is. I mean, we need something. I think we need to know what we're paying now, so that we can see what the increase will be, and also what the increase would be if we raise that salary, because it's not for separate.
Well, and we went over those numbers on the
Did you
phone.
get those figures? You got those figures?
We went over those numbers, but here's the thing too, how much more are we gonna add? We're having a problem trying to get people now.
Okay, but the commission, I think, needs the basic
We can get you all of that
information.
breakdown of that. I'll get you printed. Or I'll give you what I talked about.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we've got to decide what Michael, are you looking to us to?
I'm looking at you as trying to come with a solution. We can go out, and if we don't go with your company, it's fine. We can look to advertise, and I'll put it out there and we'll re-advertise again. And if you wanted to look at adding more money, we could do that too. I was trying to come up with a solution. Now, a very short term, as Mr. Walkman said, even if they came in and did an analysis of where we're at and where we need to be, because I don't think that's ever been done. So if they came in and spent 30 days and found out where we are financially, as far as maybe we can streamline some processes, maybe we can cut down on accounts, so all of these things I thought could help us. And in the meantime, maybe you could still advertise and try to get somebody.
Okay. Debbie, how much more time are you willing to? I mean, because we all understand that if, finance director is the importance of that to the operation of the city.
Right,
And
understood.
so, we need to get, the commitment from Debbie as far as how much longer she's willing to.
I'm not gonna walk out on the city or I walked out a long time ago.
And we appreciate, I know you've been here long past, and I appreciate that. I know we all do, so thank you so much.
I do know that, I think we advertised the salary between $45,000 and $55,000. And I asked Michael yesterday, what's the benefit package here in Crescent City? How much does that cost for that benefit package? Is that included in the 45 and 55,000? And he said, no, the benefits are somewhere between 10 and 15, which if you go on the high end, that would be paying somebody about $70,000. So just to give you kind of some numbers, now if you want to start subtracting, you can do that. But so we're still looking, at a significant amount of money for a finance director. And he told me you were making about 50. Is that true, Ms. Peacock? I'm just kidding. But anyway.
But just think, it takes 5 people to replace you. Okay, so we need to.
Well, number one, we know we're going to pay
Yes.
some money. And that's the problem we always have in Crescent City. Because we always at the bottom of the pool when it comes to the pay scale. That's why we can't get nobody. So we just go ahead and pay.
The only other thing that I wanted to also address here is the $6,500 is $78,000 a year. But then if we have to also get a clerk, and let's say, you want to go on the cheap and you want to do 35 hours a week and pay $12 an hour, you're looking at about a $22,000 addition as well. Now we're up to about $100,000. And I think that that's something that we really do have to look at that. I mean, it starts to get costly. So
That is what I
that's
was
where I'm at with it.
talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so,
Well, you also have to add in this $375 a month for HR support services.
That's a voluntary add-on, so that's
Yeah,
something that we offer that gives you unlimited access to all of our library of forms, including policies, procedures, other forms, templates, and then a 1-800 number you can call anytime with any HR question, and a licensed, certified, government experienced HR professional will answer to the city, then no problem, you don't have to.
I believe we have a comment from the public. Ms. Sykes.
I just have a technical question. You mentioned that you can import from other formats, from other financial software, like the one we just paid $100,000 for. Once our information is in your proprietary software, can it be exported in a format that could be input to other financial software?
Sure, so for those that didn't hear, the question is, the proprietary software that we use and implement with our clients, what are the import-export capabilities, namely exporting? And so let's take purchasing. So for this City of Madeira Beach, they use all our purchasing forms and tools where a purchase requisition is initiated through a form. They can access it with their phone, a tablet, their computer. It's customized to exactly meet what their procurement policy dictates. They complete the form, hit submit, it goes through a workflow approval, notification, goes through approval, and then once creation of the purchase order. So we would put that into the accounting system. So we can, based on if that's in Edmonds, there's typically an import option to be able to aggregate those requests, or maybe it's an invoice approval, put it in general ledger data for each transaction, accumulate those, export to a CSV file, for example, and then we could import that into Edmonds to avoid dual entry into the system. So we would look at all of those potential efficiencies with being able to, if the city wanted to utilize our software, which is completely free of charge, and we just offer that as part of our package, it essentially eliminates manual paper-based processes, has a nice dashboard reporting, like I mentioned, workflow capability. If the city wanted to implement that, felt that was a good idea, especially for other user departments that may not work in Edmonds, to assist with initiating requests, processing transactions. We could do that. You could integrate with your accounting system. So the answer, short answer is yes.
We already have that with Edmonds.
And if you already do that with Edmonds and it's not applicable, then it certainly, depends on the municipality. Some, there's various features. We have an entire budgeting solution that we use. Love to show you that if you're interested. And if you are and you want to use it, it's a part of our service package.
And we have not had any discussion about getting off Edmonds. Our discussion has been transitioning, now that we're in the middle of this, is transitioning to Edmonds. I think their software would just be able to pull information and put it.
Right, this is not meant to replace Edmonds. This is meant to work with the
On your end.
ERP environment that you have, right, and be able to create efficiencies, which we'll be able to identify through the, like we said, that we're working with people.
Michael, I've got a question for you. This looks like it's going to be over 100,000 a year. Is this going to knock out our city clerk? We were talking about hiring one.
No, I don't think it's going to be a clerk, but that's another discussion we have to have about
Right.
getting the city clerk and what that person does. And could this be part of it? That was another complicated thing as we started to talk about this. Could this be part of that city clerk's job? It most certainly can, but we wouldn't need two people. As I look at it.
We would need two people or?
No,
we
I'm
would
saying,
not need two people?
as we started talking and started talking with Debbie and started saying, well, what's the need here? Could it be something that we can roll both of those into one? We've had a need for a clerk, we've had a need for some of these positions that have been eliminated over the years. But in this case, for what they're doing, it quite possibly could be something that they can do, and they can do both.
Okay, what do we want to do here?
I have an observation and recommendation. I appreciate your presentation. We just got the contract yesterday. I cannot imagine voting on this without written resumes of the principals of this company and the people that they propose to provide the services, and as well references from the current clients, the public clients, and any brochure that they have. This is very undefined as now. We've put a very loose price tag on it, but I think we need references, resumes. Also, I would like to know from either the city manager or a Clarion, are there other companies that provide these services? And should we be possibly putting this out for an RFP? And I think that we should get this information. And I think it's reasonable that we continue to advertise the finance director position, because this is kind of a question mark at this point. And you've indicated a lot of flexibility in working with. But I don't see how we could make a decision tonight. I mean, we have a workshop coming up, I think, on the 16th. Is that next Tuesday?
Okay.
I would suggest that we either set a special meeting to discuss this, or I don't know if next Tuesday is too soon to add a special meeting on that same time. But I think we need certainly references and resumes, and a little more time to discuss this.
Can I make a recommendation perhaps, or?
Well, I was gonna say, I think the resume is his company itself. What I don't really kind of like is that you throw out your $6,500, and I'm not, I mean, kind of vague. The contract's vague, and I'm just not comfortable with the contract. You got 5 people, one gets sick, you got 4 people. Can you keep up with everything? I don't know. It's just kind of a vague thing. I think she's right. We do need to understand with the resume. You were formed in the summer of 2020. So you personally, your company has not been here for a while. So some good things maybe from Stark and Pinellas County, something to back up kind of what you're saying with your work, I think would help. So yeah, we're having a priorities meeting. That's the priority meeting next Tuesday, correct?
Next Tuesday.
Can we fit some of this in there as well, or do we have to make another? I mean, this is a priority as far as I'm concerned, because of Ms. Peacock's wanting to retire. And so this is definitely a priority. I think that we should discuss it, and I'm not sure how to do all this.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
Understood the concerns and legitimate. I think there is a bit of a time crunch with Debbie, the outgoing finance director, that action does need to be made. If you're not comfortable with an extended time frame, would you be comfortable with a 1-month period by which we could work with the outgoing finance director, understand everything that's involved, see where maybe there's some process improvement and efficiencies that can be made, and maybe we lay out a plan by which someone either could be hired internally or in a source role. Here's what this could look like, both at the finance director position and then maybe more back office intro accountant type work would look like, and then lay that out for you. And then from our recommendations, you can move in any direction that you want.
Funny thing, I was thinking the same thing. Can we get a month from you and then look at definite cost and what you're providing?
We can shorten the duration of this contract to 1 month, and then after that time, let's see what the next phase looks like based on our analysis, and we will obviously have all the decision-making power and what direction you want to move from there. If it's either moving forward with our firm, continuing to advertise the position, hoping you get someone that can fill it, that has all the credentials and necessary experience, or potentially if you want to post an issue in RFP, there's no statutory requirement for legal and accounting services that you do need to do, but of course, if you feel it's in the best interest of the city to advertise an RFP. I'm not aware of other direct competitors that do exactly what we do, but certainly well within your rights to issue an RFP and go ahead and respond if you decide that outsourcing this position isn't the best interest of the city going forward and in the long term.
And as quickly as possible, can you get the documents up?
Yeah,
Mr. Bingo
absolutely.
was
References,
asking for.
bios, I've already provided some of that to your city manager, so I'll make sure whatever you asked for that I have not provided, we'll provide that as quickly as possible.
Michael, explain to me, maybe both of you, Andrew, both Michael can explain to me, say for $6,500, you would say for the 30 days, what exactly would we get during that 30 days? I mean, because that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around right here, is if you came in for 30 days and did an assessment, $6,500, what are we actually getting? I mean, what are we gonna walk away with after 30 days?
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Well, because we've changed that, the initial thing was if you did a contract with them for more than just 60 days, that was just the initial getting through, analyzing where you are. You're gonna cut it down to a 60-day or 30-day period, whatever that period is. They're gonna come in and you're gonna do an analysis of our system, find out how we're doing things, maybe streamline processes. Maybe we can help Debbie out a little bit, and then say, okay, this is where your system is, this is where your processes are, correct? I think
and
come up with your
a
partner.
clear delineation of duties. Here's exactly what we feel the finance director will complete. And maybe we determine, okay, we think one finance director can handle all the finance department responsibilities. And this is truly a one-person department. Maybe not, maybe it's finance director would be doing X, Y, and Z, and then we need someone else, whether that's an employee of the city or someone that's contracted to do these other functions that in totality comprises all the responsibilities of the finance department.
Well, it's gonna take 30 days to give us that analysis.
I feel we can do that, yeah, so what is, we'll be on site, as I expressed to the city manager, we can commit, 2 days each week, for the next 4.5, 5 weeks, to get that, and we can certainly come back to you all.
I would have a motion,
Okay, Commissioner DeVito, let me,
because I would move that we ask a Clarion to return to us with the assessment proposal in writing, what they specifically propose to do, with references from their current clients, and anyone else they want to add, resumes of the principals, that they get it back to us as soon as possible, and that we set a special meeting to consider both their proposal and as well what the re-advertisement of the finance director position should be. Because anyway, that's my motion, that they come back to us with a written proposal, references, resumes, and that we set a date to consider that.
okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have no second.
I'm digesting.
Ma'am,
Digesting all this.
you're digesting all of it?
Yeah.
Any public comment?
Here's one.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Why wouldn't you, if you already know that it's gonna be 100 plus, it's always more than what you anticipate, to have a firm do a financial director, why wouldn't you raise the salary for a financial director and advertise the higher salary? And you might just find another Debbie out there and save 25, 30,000 a year.
Can you identify yourself? I'm sorry, just for the record. Deb's gonna get after you
Frida
if you
Hartman.
don't. Ma'am?
Frida Hartman, 33 South Main.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if I wasn't clear, what I'm saying is that I don't think we can hire someone for services that we agreed to verbally tonight. So if we want to consider them to do an analysis, that they should return it to us in writing. And I also said that whenever we consider that, if they submit it, we should also consider the re-advertisement of the finance director, because as Ms. Gale, or I'm sorry, Hartman said, you changed your name, Rita. That's also a discussion that we should have. That's the other option. And we have to do, I think we have to do something before March.
Okay, Michael, if we were to do this, if we were to go forward with this, have you spoken to any other companies that you could bring us some cost comparisons?
I'm gonna have to find other companies that do the same services, if there's any out there.
I think that would be prudent for us to look at that as well.
Please.
Okay. Yes,
Do I need to, for the record, but anyway, the $6,500 for a 30-day thing, that would be an investment to train up what the knowledge Debbie Peacock has to launch them to take over. If they weren't to take over, it would be a $65,000, $65,500.
100.
Sorry, Sam, Biden. Waste of money.
Yes,
It'd be a loss.
that's what we're
that's what we're
contemplating.
So I,
contemplating.
do you need to do it today? Stay for, I don't know.
Thank you. You want to identify yourself for Deb, please?
Brett Peterson, 315 Chestnut Street.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so,
Excuse me.
yes,
Scott King, 721 Lemon Avenue. You just said it, but it'd be ridiculous not to get other companies to bid on this. That's just not right. So please, let's do that. Thank you.
we have a motion.
Do we have a second?
Well, we do not have a second. Do you want to?
I don't think I'm looking included all that.
I'm sorry,
You're not.
Commissioner Banks, what did you say?
You're gonna have to amend her motion
Will you
because it does
clarify
not
the
include
motion?
all that.
Okay, well, I looked around at, like, the rest of the commission was interested in having an assessment from a Clarion. So I'm just saying, hey, let them submit it to us in writing. But I also raised the question, should we be getting bids from other companies? I agree with Mr. King, yes, we should. I think we need to look at what are the options for the finance director position. We should look at the salary. We should look at whether other companies are out there. And certainly if the Clarion wants to submit a proposal to us for an assessment, I think we should be willing to consider that. But we need to, I think we need to pursue all our options, and we need to do it before March. So we need to do these things, and I think we need to set a date to come back and talk about them.
Okay, do you want to clean up that motion a little bit?
All right.
Thank you.
So, well, I mean, y'all can make a motion, but here we go. So I move that we set a date further in February to look at re-advertising the finance director position and talk about what that might look like. As well, that we look at bids, putting out for bids from similar companies. And that if a Clarion would like to do an assessment for us that was just described, that they should make a proposal in writing for what was just discussed here, the assessment. And they should also provide references and resumes.
Okay, I'm gonna just make, before we go through that, you're asking for them to put this out for bids. This will not be something that could be done by the end of February. You want something, you want Michael to put this out for bid.
Well, I think at our meeting, we need to talk about that. I'm not suggesting that we just go put it out for bid because we don't really know yet what we're bidding.
We have a motion. We have a second. Do we have any amendments to the motion?
Okay, are we gonna put a date on this?
I guess we're gonna have to put a date on it.
Okay, how long will it take to, first of all, get what we need from you?
With
We
regards
can't
to,
hear you. We can't hear
I'm
you.
sorry, I'm asking how it takes him to get the list of what we need from him, okay, so that we can discuss that. Plus the bids, you're saying we can't get put off the bids, but we certainly could go out and look for a financial director, put the ads out, correct? So about how long is all that gonna take?
I think,
The purpose of, I'm
It's
saying,
it's
we
not
need
gonna
to,
happen in February, I don't think.
no, I'm saying the purpose of the meeting is for us to set the parameters. We need to discuss what a re-advertised finance director position would look like. And what an RFP would look like. And if we're interested in the assessment that this company has discussed offering us, that would be a time to consider a written proposal that they would give us. What I'm saying is we need a future meeting to discuss this subject. If we don't want to set all the things that we're going to do in that meeting, that's fine with me, but I think we need a future meeting to pursue the current discussion that we've had.
Okay, he already indicated that, as far as the finance director, that's what's part of this, is that if we allowed him to come in for that 30 days, he would give us an assessment as to exactly what we need to advertise for our finance director. Am I correct? Isn't that what you said?
that's correct, and also know that it does pose a conflict if you want to do an RFP for this service while simultaneously issuing an advertisement for the position. Since the two conflict with each other, I don't think that's in the best interest of you all to try to do all simultaneously. And this isn't an overnight process. So again, and we're dealing with your current finance director. So unfortunately, time is of the essence. So I think the last thing that you want is to be in a position where you have no finance leadership at the city at all, and then the city does get in a bit of a bad position. And I know Debbie's extended her role, and we can continue to ask her to extend it, but from conversations and directly with the city manager, they do want to move on this quickly. So, we can offer essentially whatever you want. We can do an assessment, let you know what we think. If you want to explore the posting the position, advertising for the position, by that time, we've got very good knowledge of the inner workings of the finance department. And if you hire that person, we can help train that person, get that person in a position to succeed in that role, and we can certainly assist with transition. And if you decide you want to put that out for RFP and have other companies bid on it, well, perhaps we are in that role on an interim basis, unless your outgoing finance director continue to extend from monthly cycles. We can do that on an interim basis until you find a long-term solution that you feel is best for you. So if that's not us, that's someone either in house or another firm that proposes that you feel is a better position to do this than we are, no problem. We will help with that transition in any way. I just don't want the city to be in a position, because I've seen it too many times myself in the past, where we have a retirement and a succession plan, at least in the near term, isn't there, and things kind of fall off. So, in respect to your outgoing finance director, I would say we do want to have not only a long-term plan, which you've discussed, but also a short-term plan to make sure let's stay on and things are getting done as they should.
Well,
Commissioner Banks.
Mayor, let me say this. Maybe we can plead with Ms. Peacock to stay until we sort some of this out. Because we're doing too many things. I think what we need to do, we need to look at if we're going to go out for a finance director, okay, advertise for a finance director at a reasonable price, since we kind of know the range where we got to advertise in to get a qualified person. Okay, and then if we can't get nobody to come in, then we go to plan 2.
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Burton.
Yeah, we've already been trying to get a finance director, and it's not come to fruition yet, so it's.
But the price we are asking,
Oh, I
and
understand.
that's what turning people away. If I'm worth $75,000 a year, you ain't gonna get me for no $50,000.
Well, I think also what you're dealing with is when you come to a benefits package, because a lot of these is what is the government accounting. So it's not just your basic accounting, it's not just your taxes, it's government accounting, which adds a whole nother level to that. But a lot of your people that are experienced in governmental accounting are in a better benefit program. They're in the FRS, they have different benefits than the city's providing at this time. And so that's what we're competing with, because, you know, I've even spoken to people in surrounding cities, you know, do you have somebody? And they say, yeah, but they come for that, you know, for what we're doing. So maybe that's more the discussion we need to have, is looking at our budget, because we've got quite a few positions that, you know, have been dropped off in the years, and our staff is suffering because of it. I mean, they are overworked. They are. I've watched them. The paperwork is enormous. I mean, go in Debbie's office and you can see the paperwork she has. So maybe that's more the discussion right now that we need to have, is looking at our budget and saying, you know, guys, where are we and what positions do we actually need? We do know that we need a clerk. Is that something that, you know, so I'm thinking that maybe that's what we do, is that we table this at this time, if anybody's willing to support that, and that we do have a workshop on this and have a discussion. And Andrew, I appreciate you coming in and the presentation you've given today. I know that you've been well spoken of from those communities that you've worked with, and hopefully we will be able to work together. But we've got to move on, and we've got to make a decision here.
And Andrew, we're not rejecting you, it's just a lot of money right now for our little tiny community.
No, I understand, yeah. And if we got to learn more about the inner workings and maybe our fee structure changes a bit, it's just difficult to.
I
know the
understand,
information we
yeah.
have.
And we invite you to come back in also, as for when we do workshop this, and maybe you can give us a little bit more enlightenment as to what we're dealing with. And
Sure,
what you
yeah.
and what you would be offering.
Yeah, look, I know that this is my mission statement. I know for smaller communities, it's very difficult to find somebody. If you try to throw more money at it, it's just a niche set that's very difficult to find. So you're not the only one to find yourself in this quandary. So you know, that's why I'm here to help, and whatever you decide, I'm here to support you.
Commissioners?
Thank you for coming. I really think this commission, let me try to put it back on track. we call it for special meetings, for different things, but we need to be looking at the main thing. We got a police department, we got an administrator, gonna be gone soon.
We got a lot of stuff coming.
We got a lot of stuff on the
We
plate.
got a lot of stuff coming
So
up on us in a
we
very
need
short
to
period
make
of
some
time.
decisions, what we gonna do, and where we go or stay. Yeah, now it's one or the other. We could have all these special meetings about the garbage and all of that. But we really need to get busy and concentrate on what we need to do immediately.
Okay, Commissioner.
All right, let me make a motion. How about we let Andrew and his group give us a month? And let's see if he's happy with what's happening and see if, this is something we're happy with. And I know in this contract, you would be starting today, but it would be maybe next week, Monday, would be a good time for you to start, is that correct?
That's right.
All right,
Monday's a holiday. Monday is a holiday.
okay, Tuesday then.
Hey, we work holidays, we do all that.
Let's do Tuesday because then,
I think with Peacock, that's Monday off, I believe.
right. And we'll need her here to work with your person that will be looking at this.
Yes, we'll be there in person, working with the team. We're going to do that on 1 month.
I know that was a lot of extra talk, but basically what I'm proposing is we give him a month to look at the program, see if he can be happy with us, we can be happy with him. Meanwhile, we'll get the certification that Lisa is interested in seeing from you.
Sure. That's very sensible.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Yes.
Brett Peterson, 315 Chestnut. What if we could buy 6 months of time? Because we have a lot of things on our plate right now. We can take this off the front burner. Maybe 6 months, pay Ms. Peacock at the rate is $78,000 a year.
Yep.
Would that work?
Yep.
How much did you pay him to do that? Hello, Debbie. His salary, what they've proposed right now, thank you for your suggestion, the salary that they're proposing right now, or the contractual agreement includes the benefits that position currently has.
It would not be a significant pay bump, and that doesn't solve the long-term problem.
Well,
But thank you.
okay.
Yes, Commissioner DeVito.
We've kind of gone in a circle. I absolutely am not willing, and I think it is completely inappropriate to agree to hire anyone for a month at this rate. We're not talking about paying somebody $10 an hour without a specific written proposal for what they would do and give us their resume and references before we sign any such contract. I absolutely do not think that it is appropriate to verbally convert this proposal that we have in front of us to a proposal for 30 days of services, because the product is different. And it's been discussed, but unless somebody is going to sit down, I mean, it has to be reduced to writing. It just does. I mean, Jay's there somewhere, but we have not one piece of paper other than a proposed contract to tell us, even though you seem very nice, who these people are. And we can, I think without that, we cannot ask them to open the door and look at our system.
Well, let me, Mayor, if I may,
Okay. Yes, sir.
Commissioner,
Yes,
you
sir.
know. Well, how long would it take for you to get the necessary paperwork that Commissioner Vito was talking about?
With regard to bios, resumes of team members, that's tonight, tomorrow.
References.
The scope of services, if the intention is to move forward in a outsourced finance director capacity for the next 30 days, as a kind of feeling out period to say, hey, does this make sense on a longer term basis? Is this happy? Is it clarity and happy? I think the scope of services in that contract essentially fulfill that. If it's more of assessment nature, give us kind of a finance department assessment, tell us what, maybe what some, looking at systems, process, and personnel structure looks like, and kind of what our view would be in a longer term future of what the finance structure could look like, either on an outsourced basis or training someone in-house. We could add some language to the scope of service, kind of focus on that. Other references from our municipal clients, absolutely, I'll reach out to them tomorrow to get a letter to you all. Can't guarantee their turnaround time. I can also give you contact information so you can, if you prefer a phone conversation, happy to do that as well. So I can move on those items very quickly.
Could we get that stuff, put that information together for next week and get it to everybody?
When is our next meeting? I mean, we have a workshop.
Well, we're supposed to have a workshop on the 16th.
16th. Could we, would that be possible on 16th?
Probably not.
That's next Tuesday.
That would not be, based on where we are today. We could do it on the 24th of February.
If we separated 10 days now, we gotta advertise.
That we have to advertise that, so it would be the 24th, we could do it the 24th, we could do it the 25th, whichever works with you. 24th,
Probably the 20.
24th,
You want to do that in the afternoon?
yeah.
Yeah.
Or the 25th?
25th. I have ethics training on the 24th.
You have ethics training on the 24th?
This is a workshop.
Yes,
so,
yes. There's ethics training on the 24th. I think there's something going on the 25th, but why don't we say tentatively the 25th and check our calendars for, I think there's something else going on the 25th. I don't know. But maybe we could arrive at a really convenient time. You know, by,
Okay, what time on the 25th?
well, that's what I'm saying. Don't set a time today because, well, I don't know. I had a feeling Commissioner Burton said there's ethics training on the 24th. I think she's absolutely right. I have a strange feeling there might be something else going on the 25th. I think maybe we should look at the calendar and review that.
Then we would do it for Tuesday, March 2nd. How does Tuesday, March 2nd look for everyone? We need to wrap this up.
Yes, you
Well, no, I'm just saying, I think we can do Thursday, the 25th. I just think we need to check for conflicts with any other trainings or whatever it is going on. Because I think when we do this, the better.
Yes, we need to get on with our business.
Right,
Was the 25th okay with everyone?
Yes.
yes,
All right, let's do the
Okay, I'll do
25th.
the 25th.
okay.
What time?
Yeah, I,
1 o'clock?
sure,
Our 16th is 1 o'clock also.
March,
February 25th, that's the Thursday.
February, one
At 1 p.m.
Okay.
Okay.
So to be clear, my mandate leading up to that meeting is to provide references, proposal, or any assessment procedures, or,
All of the above.
okay, so perform assessment from next week until the 25th meeting to come back with you all with our feedback?
No,
Or just
no,
give
no.
you references?
Give us the
you-
references, your resume, the brochure, and your scope of work.
Okay, provide that to you all, so that.
Okay,
With the 25th. Okay,
thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Sorry this took so, thank you.
no problem at all, thank you.
Okay, next item of business is authorization for the selection of construction services for the Central Avenue improvements. Michael, you want to speak to this?
Yes.
I think we have a speaker.
We do have a speaker. Last time we came before you, it was for approval of the CEI. Last time I came here before everybody, it was for the CEI services for this, the construction inspection services for this project, the repaving of Central Avenue. Today, we're here with Jason Shepler. He's from Midtower and Associates, the engineering firm that's been working with us for years. He was instrumental in the bid process for construction services. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Hopefully before you had the recommendation of award letter, sometime before Thanksgiving, the city put an advertisement out for construction of the Central Avenue improvements, which were funded through a Florida Department of Transportation small community outreach program, which is focused on municipal clients. You guys have been the recipient, I think, on Walnut Street was a road that you had done through STOP funds. So this, there was 2 bidders who submitted proposals based on the drawings and specifications. Halifax Paving was the low bidder. They've done work in the city before. We worked with them at various projects. They've been in business for quite some time. Their low bid number, along with CEI services and the engineering design services, are all within the DOT budget. We actually have a cushion available for anything that may come during construction. But basically, at this point, it's for your consideration to go forward with the award process. What we would do from here is issue the notice of award. That would begin the contract basis, which would come back for city signature, the insurance and bonds, et cetera. And then we would set up a pre-construction meeting with the CEI firm and the contractor to get the project underway. We're hoping the project would be completed within about 3 months from when it begins. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions?
How are we gonna work with IMA's hardware?
Well, that's one of the questions, and I guess in the pre-construction, once you have dates and times, you'll be meeting with the individual, who will be meeting with the individual businesses?
So I met with one of them,
Okay,
with 3 bananas.
but to give them the actual times and the scope of the work and how the impact's gonna have on, what impact it's gonna have on them.
Sure. Yeah, construction, certainly, if they, representative of those businesses are welcome to come. The meeting, the invitations would go to the general contractor, the CEI firm, office, and then anybody from the city who would want to attend, and we could coordinate with them, and begin the coordination of the traffic control. Obviously, there's going to be some point in time when the road in front of the business will have to be inaccessible to the public, just for them to do the paving improvements, but we can work for timing, negotiation, things of that nature, and get on the same page with the contractor.
Okay. Does that burden fall on the city? That's gonna fall on the city to work this with the businesses?
Well, it's the city, but it's also our CEI contractor
Okay.
for their inspection, and we work with the contractors. We have a conversation with Halifax
It's
about
just-
all working together. to try to
It's very important that these businesses and that, that they're notified and they know the impact it's gonna have on them so that they can make arrangements, necessary arrangements. They've got deliveries coming in and out of there, and so,
I talked with 3 bananas and she said she could arrange. I haven't worked on this end, but the most business, 2 businesses on that street is producers and 3 bananas. They really.
and you've got
There's a bunch of businesses there.
King.
There's quite
Yeah,
a few
okay.
businesses.
That's,
There's,
Yeah,
and I know
I'm
he's
gonna
got
let
it.
but,
that right there.
But you can enter through prospects
hopefully,
around
yeah.
the back of your.
We survived the 2000 repaving, and there was a lot of work done then and whatnot, but I don't know about anybody else, but I got a semi every night that comes, and I got my trucks coming and going, so yeah, we'll need to work together, please.
Okay. Commissioner DeVito, you have a question?
well, I have a couple questions about the document, but one observation I have is, now that we're talking about the businesses as well, these are our boat ramps. We have 3 boat ramps that will be affected. Because when you're working on the east end, I don't think people will be able to get, so the main boat ramp will be closed, and also I don't think it's possible to get to Sunrise Park like Central Avenue is being worked on. So hopefully there's going to be some kind of notification process, advertisement to the general public. We don't want people driving long distances here with their large boats.
I don't think Scott can survive.
Right.
What happened in 2000 with the ramps, if you come through Lake, then you've only got to cross Central,
Right.
and then you have access to both ramps. So I don't think that would be very difficult for them, quite honestly.
I think
That's a
that's
great
something
point, though, thank you.
to be very sensitive to, that as you go through the pre-construction and the planning with this, as far as the stages, that you make sure that you have that access either through Lake or Park, because you can also access it on Park. So you would have to leave one of those open
Right.
while you're working on the other section.
Sure, because these aren't little tiny boats we're talking about anymore. There's some very, very large trailers. That, whatever.
My
but-
discussion with Jason and with the construction inspection was that even though they have a 3-month schedule, it's not 3 months of impact directly, milling and resurfacing, and there's most of the time people on the weekends, so that's where the boaters mostly are. We've had those discussions about when it would be an impact. So the impact was what, Jason, when you talked initially?
So the milling operation, the traffic can pass, after the milling is done, it'll be rough surface. When they rework the base, which is rehabilitating the pavement section, will be the time when the pavement will be inaccessible during that portion. They are planning to do that in phases. They can certainly work with the business owners to figure out what is the best approach for that. But even in that regard, I think you're looking at a week in a section or less that would be traffic unable to pass, and then they open that back up. So it should be a relatively short duration in segments, but overall, they probably will have, they're thinking 60 days from when they hit the ground to final straightening. So, within that time frame, probably a couple of weeks where it's really disruptive and needing coordination.
Right, so I'm saying, I don't know whether it's going to be a day that it would be, that they're around for 2 days. I just think we need to figure out some kind of advertisement process, because we do not want people showing up here and being really ticked off.
Sure.
And that, it's a gas to bring a boat here. My specific question about the proposal is, I don't really know how we got here. On page 2, there's, at the bottom, the last box says total base bid, no, next to last box, additive alternative number 1, curb and gutter removal and replacement. I talked about this with our former city manager. We went around and around, and I didn't see anything. I don't even know if we saw the design specs. I don't know what they are. But right now we have very historical looking rounded curbs. Have those design specs been created?
This line item is only in the circumstance, the reason why it's an additive alternative is if there's a piece of curbing that's damaged during construction, then it could be replaced. So the intent is that work would happen between curb and curb. But there's a lot of locations where the asphalt's come over the curb line.
Right.
So when they try to remove that material, we're just concerned they may, cause some damage that we need to.
Okay, so this is just replacement of specific sections as needed. So
Yes,
basically, we are not changing the appearance of our overall curve. We're gonna
That's
get the
correct.
same thing.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I
He's
know.
got in there 500 linear, so that, I guess that's.
I'm sorry.
Don't you have in there that the estimated quantity 500 linear feet?
It's a unit price item, so, that was an upper ceiling, but, if they have to do 0 grade, if they have to do 250, then the line item.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank
And
you.
when do you expect to start the pre-construction? Have the
So typically, after we issue the notice of award, assuming the city concurs, usually for them to get insurance bonds, contracts all set up and signed, about 3 to 4 weeks, and then we set up a pre-construction. And then at that time, we typically try to issue the notice to proceed at that meeting. We can talk through that as well, but at that meeting, we can certainly begin to go through logistics and how they see their schedule and some of the specific items with some business owners.
Okay. And Michael, we can make sure that we put this out on the website as well, so that people are aware of the schedule. Commissioner Banks?
But Halifax is a good company, because they have already did work in Crescent before.
They've been in business a long time.
Michael, do you need our approval? You know, is this just, you
I'm
need
just
our
looking to
approval?
get your approval, so, but DOT is
Do I
always
have a
happy when we
motion
do
to
that.
accept?
Get
I move.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? No.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you very
Thank
much. You have to wait so
Oh,
long.
no worries. Thank you.
Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to take the agenda items out of order and put our public hearing before the law enforcement contract discussion. Is everyone okay with that?
Which public hearing? Oh, for the ordinance?
I'm gonna take it out of order. Put the law enforcement contract discussion behind that. Is everyone in favor? Okay with that? Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
We did not have on this agenda, usually we have an item that says additions or deletions to the agenda. Is there a place on the agenda where we are expecting to talk about the large item that was the subject of a Black Daily news story today?
We will be talking about that as we move further down in additional reports and comments between the city manager and different commission members if they have something that they want to discuss. But we will be discussing it at that time. Unfortunately, the agenda was out, it was printed, and other news came up. So, but we will be discussing that as we go further down.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so at this time, public hearing, we've got the first reading of minutes 2021-01, an ordinance of the city of Crescent City enacted by a minimum of 4/5, 4 of 5 commissioners of the city commission of the city of Crescent City, provided for in section 3.05 of the charter of the city of Crescent City, providing for the abolishment of the Crescent City Police Department, providing for severability, providing for complex, and providing for an effective date. So we have an ordinance. Do I have a motion of acceptance?
I so move.
Okay. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
First,
No, we're not voting yet. We're going to allow public comment.
you're not going to allow comments for the,
Yes, we are going to allow public comment. We are
Before the vote or after the vote?
before the vote. Okay, at this time, do we have any discussion for the commissioners?
I have some comments to make.
Okay, you want to make your comment?
Right. So as you know, I was not in favor of having this ordinance drafted.
Okay.
I think we are getting the cart completely before the horse. This is out of order. I asked in December if the sheriff wanted to make a proposal that he should work with the city manager to develop such a proposal in form of a draft contract. You should not be enacting any kind of an ordinance to abolish your entire police department before you have a chance to review a contract and have the public look at it to see if it is something you want to do. This is completely backwards in terms of how business would operate and how the city should operate. Once we are on the road to abolishing our police department, we have signaled that we are going to put ourselves in a position where we have no alternative but to rely on the sheriff in whatever form that comes to be. And my guess is we have not consulted, as far as I can tell, with any other cities that have gone through this process on how they've done it. I'd be very surprised if this is the order that they do it in. And I will call to your attention at the bottom of the page, the last whereas clause. It says, whereas the city of Crescent City is lawfully able to contract with the Putnam County Sheriff's Department to provide law enforcement services dedicated to the city of Crescent City that would be in addition to, or quote, over and above, close quote, those law enforcement services which would be currently provided by the sheriff's department to all citizens. So yes, the city of Crescent City is lawfully able to contract for additional services. But either now or in future years, it is completely optional with her as to what the sheriff may or may not provide. So I think we're in the wrong order. We have never received in writing any kind of analysis from our city staff of what those numbers really should look like. We never received the information that I requested on the scope of our liability insurance. And we never received any statement about the cost or the disposition of the current pension plan for police officers. So I think we're out of order in voting on this ordinance at this time.
Thank you. Commissioners, anybody else have a comment?
I do. And I think what we may be a little bit out of order in the way that we present the whole thing. I will agree with Commissioner DeVito. But I'm just gonna say, I'm really gonna put this in a nutshell. What we've been trying to work through is really an evaluation of our present police department to determine, and this is the point, to determine if a chief plus 5 to 6 officers are able to provide 365 days of 24/7 coverage that is fair to the officers, fair to the Putnam County Sheriff, and fair to the citizens of Crescent City. That's really what we're trying to determine here. And if you do the math, and a lot of people, I don't know, you think 5 people, 5 days a week, it's 24/7. People get vacations, people get sick, people have to have training. People have babies, okay? Not only the women, but the dads want to now too, when their wives have babies and things. And really, I've got oodles and oodles of stuff coming at me every day. And I just want to say, it's not our job as the commission to hang the dirty laundry of Crescent City out there for all to see. And we're just not ever going to do that. And because we're not going to do that, we've been accused of not being transparent. But there's a lot more to this whole story. But that's what brings me back to the 24/7 coverage, or 365 days a week. You've got 5 people, okay, trying to do this. They are going to miss training. They are going to miss cleaning up their guns. They are going to be tired. They are going to be at each other. They are going to be fighting. There's not enough people with 5 to 6 people to do that job. It's very stressful. And I think that's what has occurred within our police department. And that's what we have to look at. And it's not anything personal against these guys. It's a hard job. And this decision we're trying to make up here is a very hard and an emotional decision. But that's the bottom line. We can't do it with 5, 6 people. And we don't have another $1 million to throw in the pot to get 6 to 8 more people. So we have to start becoming realistic and moving in, yes, a different direction, okay, for future, to be more stable with our police department. That's what I have to say.
Commissioner Banks, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'd rather not say too much, because I don't mean call everything that could be called. And it's really kind of heartbreaking.
Yes.
It really, and I've been sitting up for 36 years. Ever since I've been part of this city. I was a police here myself. They're always got a problem. We always, I don't want to say got rejects, because they weren't rejects. We thought they were good officers. And I love our officers. But it ain't like we shoving them to the back. Our sheriff offer, the sheriff offer, they give them first priority for jobs. It ain't like it used to be when the Anna Griffin, Mayberry. This is a new place where we're going now. And things is being modernized. And we're not able to, we're just not able to afford it. We at our tax bracket right now. We can't go too much more higher. But the government not gonna let us go over 10%. And we don't want to assessment if we could do that. We have never kept a full slate of officers since I've been here. They go up to 7, then all of a sudden they disappear back down to 4. Who we got to call? The sheriff, the cover. Now a lot of you all know that. So it's a major decision, and we just got to bite the bullet and do it. Now we ain't gonna be famous for doing it, but we looking out for the whole city, not for our people.
And like Ms. Burton said, we have 5 officers. That's difficult for them to cover 24/7. We know that. With the sheriff, if we have one out or whatever, he'll pull another one in, put one here. We'll have our own officers though, because we're paying for them. I know this is difficult. I've gotten enough hate mail already, and I'm front page like news. All right, thank you very much. But the point is, we can no longer sustain what we have. Our officers now have some discrepancies with their certifications. I'm saying this, I don't want to be Hastings in a year or so. You know what happened to them? They're no longer a township. All it takes is maybe one lawsuit against our police that we can't afford, and we're done. If one of our officers doesn't have his TASER certification in place and he uses it, there's no way we can win a lawsuit that comes against us. That's my focus right now. I don't hate our officers. I love them, and I know they're angry with me. But if they want to continue, I've talked to one of them and they say they do not. But that's up to them now. We've got to do something.
And I had somebody call me, say, well, y'all can't come up with enough money to keep the officers. What about we like it? We like don't have one officer.
They say no.
And one old car.
And they have to rely on the sheriff's department. They rely on the sheriff's
They
department.
rely on the sheriff to make it to the
They
town.
have to rely on the sheriff's department.
And we can't really be compared to a lack of,
No.
this is a
That's what I said.
small city with some big city problems here. And we need a police force that can handle it. Again, I'm just gonna stress this. 24/7, 365 days a week. They also, being employees and being in a stressful job, they need their time off. they need the opportunity to rest. They need the time that, to come back rested and fully alert. When you are running people the way that we've been running our police department without enough people, I'm sorry, it creates stress. It just creates a lot of problems. And sometimes when you're right in the middle of that type of work, you don't even realize how stressed out you are. You don't know that somebody comes in and 2 officers get there and somebody's taking care of it, and the next thing you know, you're, you know, I'm taking care of this kind of thing. Get out of here, you know? It's just so simple. We're human. And we need to understand that. And the sheriff's department has what I call a deep bench. And that's what Judy was saying, that deep bench, when somebody's got to go out for illness, somebody's got to go out vacation, somebody's got to take somebody from here to the jail, okay? Another sheriff comes in and covers for that. We don't have that here right now. We just don't.
Okay, could I say something to follow up?
Yes, Commissioner Vita.
Speak up, Lisa.
Sorry, thank you so much. I think some of what Commissioner Burton has described is not exactly accurate. It is true that there are cost efficiencies of a larger agency, and that is why ever since Mayor Santa had a proposal to contract with the sheriff, I've been very interested in hearing about it. But it is not accurate to say that, we don't know anything wrong has happened in our police department, and I will have something to say about that in the future. B, there's been a good working relationship between the Crescent City Police Department and the sheriff. We have talked about in the past that the officers of the Crescent City Police Department have backed up the sheriff backs up the Crescent City Police Department. I don't think it is accurate to say that our officers did not get rest or training. They're not working without vacation in some bizarre circumstance. They get vacation, they get rest, and our police department in the past has coordinated with the sheriff to back us up. There's been a mutual relationship there. So I think that it is a little dramatic to say that our officers were just overworked and that caused somehow the blow up of the department. And as well, if you're not in the right posture, you're not in the right posture. We haven't done our due diligence. We haven't looked at where we would be possibly left in the future if we needed to return. We have absolutely nothing financial in front of us. And this is backwards. We should simply not be abolishing our police department until we have fully investigated the proposed contract with the sheriff, what it would take to re-up ourselves if that did not work out in the future. And after being requested in December, was in our packet yesterday, there's a contract waiting for us on our desk. And we really need to get out of this situation of having someone wait until they are here to make a presentation to provide us the written documentation. We should be getting written documentation from a financial firm or anybody else for the presentation so that we can look. So that's what I have to say about that.
Well, Commissioner DeVito, I heard you said that officers wouldn't run down and wouldn't work down. I beg your pardon on that. Because I was sorry.
It's hard work.
He worked so hard and so many hours in rows trying to keep the department going. Now you tell me he wasn't overdoing it? Yes. He worked a whole lot of hours.
Yes, well, we have three.
Okay, wait a second. I'm going to ask you until it's time for public comment. Please let us just continue our discussion, okay? No comments from the audience, please.
a whole lot of hours. We need to look at the whole scope.
Mhm.
And I think we had 3 officers, had to call the sheriff on to take the night shift.
But, well, I recognize that. We didn't have a chief, we didn't hire a chief. That wasn't done for whatever reason, but what I'm saying is we are getting the cart before the horse. We need to look at the financials, we need to look at the contract. We do not need to be voting to abolish the police department before we have a good look at that contract and know that that will really suit us. And as well, we started a very productive discussion with the sheriff's office when he presented the PowerPoint, which was very broad brush, superficial. I put a lot of time into that, and I identified with Colonel Wells, there were a number of areas where we could have saved ourselves money and time. They would take over our evidence room, they would collaborate with us on major crimes, and they could provide much of our training. We had a lot of options to discuss and look at, but we have not looked at those. So, you know, we're getting the cart before the horse. And if you ask any other city, I would be very surprised if they would say this is the order that we should be doing this in.
Well,
So that's all I have to say.
Okay, Commissioner,
Colonel Wells,
Yes, ma'am.
if you would please. You know the proposal you gave us, the sheriff gave us on our first night?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that as close as can be maybe to the contract?
So I take it you have a copy of the contract?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, I understand that there's been some conversation and some notion, and again, I want to refresh the citizens and anybody that it is the intent of the sheriff to do anything in our power to make sure the citizens of Crescent City have great law enforcement services. If that's through a working relationship with the Crescent City Police Department or a contract for us, we were approached by the city to present this contract. There's been some notion made that it puts the city in bad negotiating position if they proceed with the ordinance prior to knowing the dollar figures for this. Well, I disagree with that because there is no negotiating position. A deputy sheriff costs $98,965 a year. It's nowhere to negotiate. That's their salary, that's the cost of their benefits, that's the cost of their equipment. So the only negotiation would be, do you want one deputy sheriff, 6, 7, 8? They're $98,965 a year and nothing can be adjusted on that. So that is the price, for you guys to decide. That would be what it would cost for us to place a deputy sheriff inside the city limits, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 years, or 365 days a year. So I've had some discussions with Commissioner DeVito about ways we can assist the city, and certainly these are offers that have been on the table for years. Crescent City police officers have been invited to attend our in-service training for years. I'm not aware that that's ever occurred. We've offered assistance with the evidence warehouse over previous discovered deficiencies. And I think that the notion being made that the officers, and I agree with this, the officers, I believe I read, have a period of time to provide their certifications. But in the simple fact that the officers are being asked to provide this is gross mismanagement of the police department. That's not a police officer's responsibility. They have other stuff to worry about. They have to worry about keeping themselves safe and managing their shifts and their home lives. The agency is responsible for maintaining those certificates, not those officers. These officers should have never been put in that position. So, with that being said, I had some conversation with the city manager, and I know we're coming all over the place here about assisting with some training that may be needed in order to re-solidify certifications, and I do have some ideas and a proposal on that, but I'm not sure if I got anywhere near your question or why you want me up here, but tell me what I can help you out.
Well, the booklet you gave us that broke down the cost of everything, is that fairly close to the signing a contract?
So,
Or was that like a contract?
May I say something? I figured it out. He has $98,965 per sheriff.
that's on page
We're
415.
if we go for 5 officers, that would be $495,000 for those 5 sheriffs. Now, another thing is, there's about $51,000 for a clerk and a receptionist to be assigned. And that 51,000, even if you add it with the $495,000, I mean, I know we're all concerned about savings. I'm not so much concerned about savings as I am about safety and around the clock stuff, but
Coverage.
it's still, it works out to be about $110,000 a year. So if that's where we're going with money, and if that's, I don't think it's all about just money, honestly. I think it's about having a group of people, just like he said. It's tough when you only have, you don't have the base for maintaining all you need to maintain. I mean, I have a lot of stuff and I can put it up here, and that's what I meant by dirty laundry. I mean, you know, I've got a lot of dirty laundry that says, hey, we're just not doing what we need to do. And a lot of it is we just don't have enough people to do it. And we really just don't have the money to hire that.
And here's a major problem we have. We have a chronic chief problem. It's a revolving door.
Yeah, well,
If we go to the sheriff, there's the sheriff, Colonel Wells. Who's the next person down that's getting out here?
It would go next to the director of law enforcement and then next to the East District Commander, who's the captain responsible.
There's not just one person overlooking this, right?
Correct.
It's like, there's several people in the command.
You know, you're right, and again, I mean, this is certainly, I felt like you'll receive, you know, a lot of explanation earlier on a previous contract, and that's not the purpose of this here tonight. There's no salesmanship here to be had. There's no anything. I mean, we're waiting for you guys to direct us on which way you want to go. But I think that's a challenge of any small police department, is we have all of those mechanisms in place so that no officer can possibly ever even be anywhere near uncertified. It can't happen. There's too many checks and balances to that. Those processes are difficult for small police departments, and there are challenges, and there are other things that in today's society where they demand so much professionalism and precise expertise on the part of their law enforcement officers, that many cities are going this direction of doing away with smaller police departments. Again, totally whatever y'all decide to do, but those will always be challenges, because all of those little ancillary functions that law enforcement officers have to do. Somebody has to maintain their certificates. Somebody has to account for the evidence. You know, somebody has to make sure their public records are correct. Somebody has to do uniform. You know, so, and that has nothing to do with everything they're dealing with on the street. So all those little required processes become very challenging for small police departments. So, you know, with that being said, that may be one of the problems is, you know, who's going to keep up with the training, who's going to do that, but yes, ma'am, I think that it's just a challenge for small police departments in today's world.
And our lawyer in Jacksonville, Susan Hurley, was back up. She said they just end up being eventually a major problem for each tiny little city like us. So.
I would like to say this. Now, what got me concerned, and I got 10 phone calls just this week about the, let me see, the time that it takes when they call a deputy before we get there. Now, I had a lady call me and I wrote the date down, and I was discussing with the city manager that morning. 40, she called a deputy and said she had an accident. So the deputy called and it stunned me because she said the deputy told me the computer was down. He couldn't give me no accident report. Couldn't give me either accident report. I said, you sure? She said, I'm positive. So I was going to look into that and get back with her because she came to me, so you probably see me to your office.
Yeah, you certainly would have to answer or ask me, specifically about that, because I ran the numbers today, and of the calls for service in the last 30 days, and I have that the response time has been 6.5 minutes on those calls. So I hear a lot of that. I think that, let me just leave it at this. Until you bring me the specific case, let me look at it, because I believe that there's probably some intentions behind it.
Maybe something I got called, but that's what she called me and told me.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to look it up and see where we at.
And it kind of bothered me because now I'm on the commission.
Now, could it be a case where, the Crescent City deputy was at the jail or on something else? It could be, and that would be the same if your police department was here, so I don't know, but I'll be happy with anything up.
I'm one of the commissioners that get up every morning, get a cup of coffee, ride around Crescent City. My wife said, where you going to check out your city? I ride around Crescent City every morning.
Yes, sir.
Wait, you can ask her, ask some more. I pass by the house. I be looking for situations. And a couple of mornings I went by there, I didn't see no deputy. So I went back out to the school zone. I was looking for a sheriff car. Ordinary, he'd be in the meeting
Yeah,
in the morning time.
yeah.
But a couple of mornings, I don't know whether, just like you said, you could have got called back up to the sheriff's office, but
And as small as the city is, with
Yeah.
all due respect, Commissioner, obviously could be past each other. And again, with respect, I do want to remind everybody that we are not under contract with the city.
right, I understand that.
And what the city taxpayers, and we hear this comment a lot, why do we have to pay the sheriff's office one dime? We pay county taxes. And that is a good question. The answer to that question is, by those county taxes you pay, you're entitled to the exact same service as every other citizen in the county. And that service does not include a deputy inside the city limits all the time. The sheriff's office at this point has only one request of the city. And I'm being quite frank with you, because we're into several of this, is that I'm approaching $30,000 in overtime covering the city right now. We're going to get to a point where you're into my hurricane funds and then the reserves that we keep for other civil unrest and stuff. So again, we're happy to do everything we can, but to continue to work to keep a deputy inside the city as much as we possibly can, we're going to need some type of resolution sometime in the future, or we're going to have to probably back that down a little. I still have to maintain budgets, and we're going to probably have to back that down and cover just parts of the day.
But that's the understanding that I want tonight. If we turn over everything to the sheriff's office, if we're going to be, I don't know, say, one officer in Crescent City, 24/7.
And potentially parts of the day too. Because it takes to have 24/7 coverage.
Yeah.
If you go with the 5, that's why we did it individually, so that you can tailor that to your needs. If you go with the 5, that 5th deputy sheriff would be able to cover leaves or vacation. And, but then when all 5 are working, then that 5th one can overlap with what we would call a peak shift or times of specific need. So it depends on how you want to cater that to you.
Okay, now, if a call come in from the county line, I'm just using the county line, because a lot of y'all do get a lot of calls down there. If the Crescent City office would have signed, the Crescent City gonna have to leave Crescent City and go down there. Now, hold on, just a minute. It might be a backup sometime.
Sure.
Because we always work together.
That's right.
We always work together. Might be sometime the Crescent City officer would have to pull out
Correct.
and take off down there.
Correct.
They help to back up the other officer. That's understandable. But my problem is, I've been preaching to the people that we're gonna have coverage in Crescent City round the clock for you.
I think it would operate very much the way it did with Crescent City PD. We would ask our deputy sheriff to leave the city limits to back up another deputy. In the same set of circumstances, we would ask a Crescent City officer to leave the city to back up our deputy. If the Crescent City deputy makes an arrest or has evidence to submit, has to go to the hospital, whatever the case is, then the circumstances would be the same. The deputy sheriff working this area would cover the city in their absence. So I think it would work very much the same. Obviously, yes, when the taxpayers of the city of Crescent City use or additional taxes that they pay on top of their county taxes to the city to secure special or more law enforcement than the general county has, then we have an obligation to make sure that the citizens of Crescent City are receiving that law enforcement. It's not being spread out. So, you know, and just like it would if Crescent City PD was here, like we've always worked together, if the Crescent City officer needed another one, we'd send a deputy sheriff in. So I don't see that there would be any change there. But I think your question is, would that be, if he's the closest, would he be sent into the county? The answer is no, unless the priority of the call would have been the same priority that we had asked Crescent City to assist in anyways, because they're dedicated.
Okay, well, what I'm telling you, right?
Right.
That's all I
I
want to
think
know.
for clarification, I think we need some clarification.
Okay.
A lot, not necessarily from you,
Sure.
Tom, but Justin, a lot of people, when you talk to them, they've got the understanding, that we're doing away with law enforcement in the city and we're going to be like Pomona Park, we're gonna be like Blackville, we're gonna be like the unincorporated area. At no time, I don't think, it's been my understanding that this commission has entertained doing away with law enforcement completely in the city.
Never.
What we're looking for is what are our options here? And is this gonna be a better option for the city? And when I've spoken to people, and maybe even said that about the sign, say Crescent City Police Department, several of them have said, well, that doesn't mean necessarily the police department. I don't care if it's the police department or the sheriff's department. I just want to make sure that we are protected and that there's going to be somebody responding to us in that time that we have expected and we pay for. And so I think that just for some clarification, and maybe that's, you know, we can take blame for that on our part, that we haven't been very clear about that. But in no way has this commission considered doing away with law enforcement 24/7 in the city.
Never.
Never.
And what,
That's been our understanding. As I see it,
That's
you
been
have
my
three
understanding.
options.
Yeah.
You can keep Crescent City Police Department. We'll continue to maintain and even if it suits everybody, we'll enhance the relationship with Crescent City. You can have us replace Crescent City as contracted, or you can do like Pomona Park did, and you can just abolish Crescent City Police Department and not enter a contract. In that third circumstance, the same deputy sheriffs that work this area will answer the calls inside of Crescent City. But that has never been a conversation that I've had with any of the commissioners. You have always been clear that your intention was to, let's restore Crescent City with some help from the sheriff's office if need be, or let's contract. Totally your decision, and we just are standing by trying to fill that gap. In the meantime, you decide which way we can help you in the future.
I think we also need to understand that even with our Crescent City Police Department, if they're on a call and they're tied up doing something and they get another call, we have to rely on some backup, and sometimes that's gonna take some time.
And generally speaking, if that call that's pending for Crescent City is not a priority or urgent call, it pins until the Crescent City officer, because that's zone integrity. It's the same way we work. Now, the Crescent City officer is busy and a disturbance or domestic or a crash with injuries or a crash with road blockage comes in, yes, and we send a deputy. But if it's something that's not in progress and can have a wait time, it waits for the Crescent City officer to clear up.
Let me just make one more comment.
Sure.
We're not getting rid of 5 officers. We're keeping 5 officers. The difference is our police chief is now the sheriff. If we progress with this.
I think that's that difference, and then all of the ancillary functions that used to have to be dealt with inside Crescent City, we'll assume for you, like the public records, the accreditation and all that
Keeping
stuff.
the accreditation going and et cetera.
Right.
One more point.
Sure.
I'm gonna get outside. If they're gonna be a go-to person, ordinarily, the city manager would be go-to person. What I mean by go-to if something ain't going right, other words, I don't think it's the job for all of us to be calling the sheriff office. I'm gonna be frank with you. Every commissioner up there calling the sheriff office when something don't go right.
Right.
I think whoever is the city manager, I think we need to go to them and let them be the liaison with the sheriff office. If something ain't going right that we think should be going different.
Sure, I think we set very clear lines of communication. I believe there's a provision in the contract that says that the city manager is the direct contact with us, and then his direct contact would be the East District Commander, who is a captain. Those two, that East District Commander would be kind of de facto chief of police. He will be the one making your monthly presentations in your county commission meetings. He will be the one hearing complaints about, the deputies that do the way they should or anything along those lines. However, I certainly don't mind the calls as well, so.
Yeah, but
But he'll be your boots on the street in this area of the county that will be directly through his sergeants and lieutenant, directly overseeing operations in Crescent City.
And my understanding that we're gonna, the sheriff will be using part of.
That's a provision of the contract as well. We will be building in that. I don't know that we narrowed it down as much, but I know that we talked about that the district commander would operate out of this building multiple days a week on set schedule, so that would be his and Michael's time together, or the citizens would come see, whatever we wanted to do. So,
And this contract, we're not approving this contract tonight.
No.
This was just going out to everybody
We got another
to
reading.
digest. Yes,
And this was
Commissioner
my
DeVito.
point of order. What is before us is an ordinance to abolish the police department, but most of the discussion for the last 10 or 15 minutes has been about the contract, which should have come first. And just leaping through here, there are some areas of great concern to me, because I don't know who drafted this.
We have Jay on the phone.
our general counsel and Jay
And-
work
and
together.
Alex
drafting.
did.
Okay, because there are some issues in here that Colonel Wells said should probably be changed from the PowerPoint that are in here. But again, it's point of order. We really shouldn't be discussing this contract because on the table, I believe, is the motion
Well,
to
you're
abolish
right.
the police
You're
department.
absolutely right. And we did get off track because they had some questions before they went forward with the ordinance.
Right, which is, it's in the wrong order. The contract should have come first.
Thank you. Do we have- I'm going to put this out there then to the commissioners. Do you want to talk about the contract before we move forward with this motion and second that we have on the ordinance?
No, I just looked at this contract that was laying on my desk tonight. It's 15 pages. This is not right.
Commissioner Burton, did you have we're going to speak?
I think it's time to hear from the public.
Okay. We have any public comment? You come forward, please.
Point of order.
Excuse me?
You should ask for additional factual testimony for or against any, so if anyone has an attorney here, that's when they would be before public comment.
Um,
I'm sorry.
Do we have an attorney here? Do we have any attorneys here?
You got some here, but they're not here to speak on behalf of anybody.
Yeah. Is
We don't have to
there
be-
supposed to be one here to speak on behalf of
Can you
somebody
hear
that you
me?
have? Yes,
Yes.
Jay, we can hear you.
Now, what was the question?
Well, the question is that, Mr. Peterson said that he felt like he needed, before we took public comment, that we needed to hear from any attorneys. Is that my understanding, that are here representing someone?
His question is letter A. Additional factual testimony, is there any?
Not at this time. Not at this time, I'm sorry. I apologize, you're.
That's okay.
Okay.
Oh, and yeah, I have one question. Supposedly, people can be present through Zoom. How do we know if someone has raised their hand?
Deb is in there watching.
Okay, so
Yes.
we're
So
mindful
as
of
soon
that.
as we get
Okay.
this, we'll ask that.
Got it.
Thank you. Yes, Diane.
Diane Sykes, 301 Chestnut Street, Crescent City. While I appreciate the commissioners' opinions, as much as you probably appreciate mine, we're not here to hear your opinion. You're being paid to vote on facts, which is one of the things Mr. Vito is pointing out. You have not considered the facts. Right now, 3 of you sat right here and voted and told us why you were voting to get rid of the police department. So you are not basing your information on facts, because we don't even have the facts yet. We don't have the results of any investigations. We don't have the results of police officers producing their certifications contrary to what the city manager has put on Facebook. And with all due respect, Commissioner Banks, when you were talking about overtime and being stressed out, that's when we had 3 officers on duty. And yes, they were stressed out. Ms. Burton, 5 officers? Yes, we have 5 officers plus 1 chief, plus our budget included hiring another officer. So that is 7 officers if you count the chief as a working chief, not 5. I would ask this time that Commissioner West recuse herself from voting on this, not only because you've already decided your vote, as opposed to listening to the facts, but because in the past, we know that you make decisions on emotion, not on facts. What I'm going to call into question is the special meeting of October 25th, 2019, where Jay specifically told us that, take my glasses off, based on the charter, the administrative supervisor shall be chosen on executive and administrative experience, professional training, and other qualifications. And your response to that was about 2.5 minutes, that you really, really sweated over this. You have chosen, no, but he will not stay here. He has 4 children and a wife. He can't afford to be here. That's your opinion. That was not the facts. The facts were he was qualified, had a resume, and he had the professional experience. So you voted, what do I say? Your exact words were, I think Michelle is intelligent enough to learn the job. And she's going to stay here.
We're getting off track here.
No, this is
2
pertinent
minutes is
to
up.
this vote. I'm asking Ms. West to
2 minutes.
recuse herself.
Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you very much for speaking. Appreciate that. Next speaker, please.
Craig, 230 Central Avenue. First off, I understand the chain of command in the police in my area or any area that I would live in the United States of America. You've got local police, you've got sheriff's department. Florida, we have state police, we have FDLE. But you have to look at what the people want. And I'm just curious if any of you, if many of you guys are even listening to the city, you know you're elected, you're not elected. A question for the city manager, a lot of day-to-day dealings with the city police department.
You mentioned if I had daily dealings, yes, it did.
A lot, do you think it'd be less now with the sheriff's department?
No,
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. I think there's a green river pouring out of the city. You can see it in so many different ways. It's going to Placa, it's going to East Placa, and whoever the finance guy was that you invited in here. Are you gonna make an effort to try to hire locally? Who are we hiring through? Where are we running ads? Is that something we can ask?
sure.
We're ads running.
We ran ads for the police chief.
No, for the finance manager.
All different places, Florida
We're
League of
on-
Cities,
we're
Florida
on the
Association
police
of
chief right
Counties, we
now.
ran them in national places, jobs.com, a whole bunch of, finance, government.
We need to stop the bleeding, city manager. We're bleeding green to all directions other than right here in our town. And we've already got one commissioner that's under recall. You remember how nice it was when you ladies were elected tonight, how good you felt? You'll have a Christmas where you'll be under recall, my guess, if you get rid of the city police. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Freedom Hartman, I have a house at 33 South Main. And number one, we want our police department. We want to keep our city whole. Stop hiring a police chief who is a friend of a friend who lives in Palm Coast or whatever. Hire somebody who is qualified, who wants to be here and live in our community and get to know our community. Number two, if the sheriff, deputy sheriffs are costing $98,000 with benefits per year, per person per year, why are our police officers making $37,000? But we're willing to pay out for the sheriff's department that much? It doesn't make sense.
Nope.
Number three, you all got the ball on these certifications or whatever issues the police department has. It's not the police department. It's you all. And it needs to be fixed.
City manager.
We hired all of you. We voted you in. We're trying to tell you as a community, we want to keep our city whole and keep our police department. We have officers that are willing to work overtime, are willing to go out there and do the extra. They're not crying, oh, I'm tired, I can't go out there. Oh, I need a vacation. They're not doing that. We have the funds to hire 6 officers, have 6 officers. And if you raise the salary, we're good 6 officers. Just like we can find somebody to take Miss Debbie's place, you pay them a decent salary. But we pay $100,000 plus a year for an agency to come in. This is ridiculous. Raise the wages for our officers and we will get officers that will want to come here and work. And we are a small city. We are not big, we don't have big city crime. We don't have 40 calls going out an hour.
Okay.
We do not have.
Thank you, your 2 minutes is up.
Okay, I have one other thing.
Well, your 2 minutes is up, and I didn't give that opportunity to anybody else, I apologize.
Promote from within.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next speaker.
And Mayor, while they're coming up, can I just say, the CDC guidelines require people to wear a mask over their nose and mouth. I see people here with masks, they're not over their noses.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner DeVito.
I'm Scott King, 721 Lemon Avenue. 6 officers is 240 work hours a week. There's only 168 hours in a week, so I don't understand why we think that there's such an issue keeping staff. I don't know where all this information comes from about how rotten the working conditions are and how they're fighting amongst each other and all of this. The sergeant lives 2 houses away from me. Looks like a pretty happy guy. I just don't see it. Quite honestly, you haven't lived here long enough to know that. So I don't see where that comes from. We keep saying that we can't keep them staffed. Do you know that the least tenured person in our police department has 3 years? That's not turnover issues. I've got turnover issues. Those aren't turnover issues. The biggest issue I have is it seems like the citizenry does not want to change. So either you don't realize that, or it doesn't matter. You feel that you know what's better for us than we do. And that could be true, but my issue is, what's the big dark secret that you guys know that we don't? What is so terrible? What is, last month, you said, Commissioner Burton, we know something you guys don't. Quote. Quote.
I said that.
You said that.
Okay.
So what is that? Now, if we're not allowed to know because of some police business and it's private information, and it won't come out till later, if that's the case, then I ask you to stop until we can know. If there is some big black cloud out there that's causing us these issues, and you can't tell us, then I ask you not to take action until you can tell us. If that is not against Sunshine, at least that it's against its intent. Don't take action for us that
2 minutes.
needs taken if you can't tell us why. Thank you.
You have a speaker?
I got something to say.
Okay.
Oreo Hall, 322 Chestnut Street. Observations the other night. 4 cars racing up and down Orange Avenue. One got stopped, the other couldn't get stopped for the stop sign, went on through it, and darn near didn't get stopped by the time he got to 17. Never saw it before. Followed a log truck, 60 mile an hour coming into town. I followed him away to see what he was doing. He caught a green light, went out the other end of town, 60 mile an hour. Saw it before. These fine officers, I know they do what they can. I've seen them 4 times. I always seen somebody patrolling down my alley where people used to steal stuff from me. They patrolled it. They got it under control. I know about running. I ran power plant jobs that had more men on it than's in Crescent City. City manager needs to do his job. I checked everybody's vacation. I was a union man, all trades. He needs to check certifications. He needs to get them. It wasn't my job to get them for the men, but it was sure my job to make sure they had them. Drug dealers on the other end of town. Hookers starting to come in. Hooker, me, an old man, almost 70 years old. Never saw it, it ain't right. Think about what you're all doing. Pretty soon this city's gonna be 4-lane, all the way from Palatka, all the way to Deland. You're gonna wish you had a cop horse there, right here, right now. Because traffic is gonna be flying through here. 8 years from now, it will be. Look up and see what's going on in the city. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers?
Shepherd, 419 Florida Avenue. I sent y'all a note and has a list of 39 businesses in town that all want to keep a local city-controlled police department. We are looking to trade 6 officers and a working chief for 5 officers. That doesn't add up to the businesses here in town. I had 3 more come in and sign it after I sent it to you. We have businesses that are corporations, they're not allowed to sign something like this because of their corporate laws. They wanted to sign. Every employee in the businesses wanted to sign, and I just wanted the owners or the managers. I keep hearing, oh, it's only a couple, oh, it's only a few, oh, you don't have the facts. Give us the facts and do the hard work to keep it local. You're about to get rid of a finance job that's not going to be locally. You have 2 more directors that are aging out to retirement. What are we to do? Are we going to bet we're going to farm them out as well? That's 2 more jobs that will not be in Crescent City.
Right.
We need to save our town. We need to save our police department. And that's it. So if you need the other 3 signatures, I have them for you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other speakers? Okay, I see no more speakers. We have a motion. We have a second. We're ready to vote. Ready to vote? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call. Deb, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner West. Commissioner Kane DeVito.
No.
Commissioner Burton. I'm sorry, I could not hear that. Commissioner Banks,
Aye.
Mayor Myers.
Like the ayes have it. So, thank you. Okay, now we do realize that this has to have a second reading, and so that we have to advertise that for 10 days. So
Could you speak up, please?
I said this has to go to a second reading. Has to have an advertisement for 10 days.
You're gonna do that in 10 days?
Yeah, I did not say that. I said it has to be advertised for 10 days.
Thank you.
So after the advertisement, then what happens?
We can vote again and get rid of our police department.
We can vote again. We'll
So
take
the
it to
vote
a
tonight
final,
didn't change anything?
it'll go to a final reading.
Okay.
First reading.
Mayor, if I could,
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Rita.
what Ms. Shepherd handed me, I think, was the additional signatures that she had collected.
Okay.
So she gave them all to me, so I passed them out to each commissioner, and I gave copies to
We need to put that
Mr.
on file.
Esposito, since Deb is not sitting behind us at this time.
You know, Deb didn't come back with us with anybody that wanted to speak.
There was nobody in
Okay,
hand.
okay, nobody was in there, okay. I thought she was, okay. So we're gonna pick this back up. Jay, you're on the phone, or you're in Zoom?
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm
So
here.
wanna
Can you hear?
go- Right,
Can
so
you-
right now, we're gonna pick up the law enforcement contract discussion.
We can hear you, Jay.
Okay. Okay, good. The,
Okay,
the contract, or the negotiated, agreement so far. I've asked the, sheriff's department to give that to Mike and place in each one of your files for your review. And I think we should take up the actual passage of it, or not passage, but enter into the agreement or not at our next meeting, or the meeting that you've got scheduled on the 24th, is it? I don't know exactly which date we're at. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure what we.
We had a special meeting called
I wanted,
24.
we had one that would take.
I wanted a copy of that in each of your files for review and comment and suggested changes or whatever you might want to. Mayor, let me just say one thing, please, for the public and also for the commission that's interested in the facts. The contrary to what Commissioner DeVito said earlier, I did take it upon myself to talk to several communities that had taken this action. And one was Waldo, one was Baldwin. And they did not enter into a contract for additional or specialty services. We are actually, or the commission is actually negotiating for extra service. And people say, well, the sheriff should provide the service, we pay county taxes. The sheriff does and will provide Crescent City the same law enforcement that Georgetown and Fruitland and the unincorporated areas of Putnam County get. But it's my understanding that the commission in addressing citizens' concerns, that the commission wanted to step up service. And that is the reason the sheriff has broken it down, the total cost, retirement, training, salaries, everything into a $98,000 figure. And he said, I mean, the sheriff's position is if we want one, it's $98,000. If we want two, it's a little shy of 200,000. But if we want five, here's the total cost. So really, it's the commission for the citizens actually set the price. You could simply call the sheriff and tell him, hey, provide us service, and we won't be sending you any checks. But that is not what you've decided the citizens may want. But the sheriff has been, the sheriff's office and his attorney have been very, very easy to deal with. They haven't pushed for anything. It's like Colonel Wells said, they've been helpful. And the cost is the cost. And if the citizens want up to 5 people, it's on that paper. If y'all decide to go to a lesser number of people, it's easy to multiply. And we tentatively have agreed that they would use the old police station, and the city would maintain it. They take all the responsibility off of us. And quite frankly, that some of the people are missing the main point, or one of the main points. No one on the commission that I know of, nor has the city manager that I know of, said anything bad or had any ill will toward any of the individual officers. In fact, Michael has been working very hard in the last week or two trying to satisfy the requirements. But one important point that Colonel Wells addressed tonight that might have been overlooked, and that was, it's the agency. It's the agency who bears a lot of the responsibility. And anyone who has lived in Crescent City for the last 30 or 40 years knows that we've struggled with recruiting and retaining leadership. We've had some leaders that were good leaders that come and go. We had one that stayed around a long time, and a local boy. But by and large, we've had trouble retaining good leadership. And without that, problems occur. And anyone who's lived here for 40 years knows that we've had problems bubble up in the police department. And it really is helpful to have an agency that has a chain of command that takes care of those issues. We had a tremendous problem years ago. It was not any of the individual officers. However, the evidence room became a disaster. And it really put us in a pickle. Goes right back to leadership. But this agreement, you study it, Mr. Vito, you look at it. I'm open to any suggestions, but as you read it, most of it would be in any contract. The numbers to me are the important item, but more important to that is that agreement takes so much responsibility and liability off of Crescent City and shoves it over to the sheriff's department. And I think that's but I'm open to any suggestions as y'all come back or call me or tell me that you don't like this or change this, because the sheriff's department and their attorney has been very helpful and very open to suggestions. But but he can't change the numbers and I can't change the numbers. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay. Commissioner DeVito, do you have a question?
I have observations and a couple of observations right off the bat about part of the contract. First of all, when I said we should be looking at what other cities did in this process, Mr. Asbury several times, I think, has confused the issue by talking about what Waldo, that speed trap disgrace, did. The other city mentioned, they were in a completely different situation. They decided to disband their police department and just go to general coverage by the sheriff, and that's not what we're talking about. So that's a poor example. There are other cities like Pearson in Volusia County, just southwest. There are at least 2 cities in Pinellas County and probably all over the state that did what we are looking into doing, and that is replace their in-house police department with a contract with the sheriff. And I'm sure they went through a process. And I have 2 of those contracts from Pinellas County. So it's not a good example to use Waldo in whatever city that was.
Okay.
And it just, okay, that's not a good example. As well, I think we need to address the issue of overarching liability. It was my understanding in prior meetings that we would not totally out of liability, and I think we need to have that fleshed out. As well, there was some discussion with the sheriff and Colonel Wells. I thought on page 4, I thought it was that Colonel Wells said specifically that they did not need the administrative records clerk position. And apparently that's in here on page 4. And there was some discussion, maybe not for the first year, but for subsequent years, of the sheriff possibly bearing some of the costs for the substation. I had a discussion about Colonel Wells with that. So some of this seems to have shifted in the other direction from where we had discussion.
My understanding with the clerk is that was, you had said that, but if we wanted to keep that open to the public and provide that service, then they needed somebody there, that they would need somebody there, and then that would provide a service that anybody in the South Putnam area could go in there and they could get any documents that they needed that they would normally have to go to Proactive to the sheriff's department for. Is that correct? To also help with,
Correct. So one of the parts that I'm going to refer to our general counsel when you start talking about the liability. So I do want to address that, and then I do want to clarify something that was said earlier. When you look at the $98,965 a year per deputy, that's not entirely the deputy's salary and benefits. Now, our benefits are much more expensive than the cities because we pay 100% of the insurance, and you guys all understand that. That's also an amortization of the equipment. Deputy sheriff's vest expires every 5 years. We won't come to you in 5 years and say we need new vests. So all the equipment, motor fuels, maintenance on the vehicles, and everything that a deputy costs is built into that. So it's more than their benefits. So we have talked about the clerk in many ways. We included the full price of the clerk in here. Again, this is draft so that you guys can decide, do you want to pull the clerk or do you want the clerk? Okay. The only thing that the clerk, like I think we talked about, that we would use the clerk for at all would be as a contact person if people walked in, and that clerk could then help provide the Crescent City residents with public records pertaining to the sheriff's office. Anything else clerk related, maintain our criminal records, any of that other stuff, we're going to absorb that in our central complex. So that won't go on here.
So my question for this, the last discussion, the last statement that I had for you, from you, sorry, haven't had a drink of water in a long time.
Right.
Was that the sheriff's office would not need to employ that person. The last thing that you say, I thought, was that that position would stay with the city, and the city would pay that person, and the sheriff would provide crossing so that the person could
do that records function.
We discussed that as an option, and we absolutely did, that if it's cheaper for the city
Right.
to employ the clerk, and if the clerk has duties that they do outside of law enforcement, our only request would be, if you continue to employ the clerk, is that you allow us to provide that clerk with training, just so that they can hand out public records. So again, this is why this is draft. We were requested to put the full amount for the 5 deputies and the clerk in here for you, so that you would know if there's tweaking that you want to do with the clerk, the number of deputies, anything along that we could do. Only thing I'm saying in this contract that is finite is if you want us to employ the clerk, that's the cost.
Right.
But there's options there.
Okay, because that was not the last thing I heard. The last thing I heard was that most of the support functions that were currently provided by our administrative. We've been hearing a lot of that.
We counted 47 times one truck blowing the horn out there. That's why I sent the deputy out to address it.
Oh, good. No, I'm saying with
Yeah.
the loud noises or whatever. I mean, we just have to wait
Okay.
for whoever it is. But anyway, the last thing I heard was that most of the functions that were formerly provided by our administrative assistant will be absorbed into your other administrative functions. So
Right.
you were suggesting that we pay that person.
I made that as a suggestion to you if you wanted to consider a cost reduction. That is correct, because
Okay.
it is cheaper for you to do it. That is certainly an option. And I learned later in the process when you and I were discussing that I think that the clerk at the police department did some duties that were outside of a direct law enforcement nature, perhaps.
Absolutely.
So again, the only thing we would have for a clerk is for there to be a smiling face when a citizen walked in and said, hey, can I have my crash report? And we would hand that crash report out and hand out criminal records. Other than that, I can't see where we would use it a lot other than that.
Got it.
No,
Okay.
but I will add, first of all, we haven't had that discussion. You made that at the last meeting, you came and talked about it. We haven't had a discussion.
That's correct, yes. Commissioner DeVito brought that up as far as the
But
clerk.
that sometimes is a fine job of people coming in, because now you're gonna be a substation for not just Crescent City, you're gonna be for all of South Putnam. People are going to be coming in saying, my wallet was stolen, I took an auto accident, I need my report. They're gonna do the same thing. If that place is not open, they're gonna come right over here and they're gonna tax any of the people that we have over here.
I don't know what the traffic would be.
No, you don't, but that was what would happen on a daily basis, and then when no one answers the door, we do that constantly, sending people to the government services building when
Right.
they need anything, but they didn't know that we provided it here.
Sure.
So that's the idea of having that admin over there.
Whatever you all decide.
And I'm gonna say, this is a draft right now,
Sure.
and this is just for us to take, to consume, to ask questions.
Right.
Commissioner DeVito, Commissioner Burton, all of us. If you've got some questions, by all means, reach out to Jay, reach out to Michael, please, so that we can, with the sheriff's office.
I think Jay and Alex have been talking daily.
Alex,
on
daily,
whatever Jay
hourly
wants
on
us to
this,
do,
I
yeah.
think, on trying to whittle this down as best they can. And so I don't think tonight's not the night for us to go through this. I think.
I agree.
Okay, so let's move a little away from that. Yes, Diane?
Well, I just have a couple of questions about functions that are currently handled. We currently have a code enforcement officer. That code enforcement officer reports to the police chief. So is our code report, we gonna have a code
No,
enforcement
code
officer?
enforcement,
Are they gonna report to the sheriff, and who's gonna do our park permits? That's something that's the police department handles. Who's gonna do all these things?
okay, Diane. Mr. Esposito, would you like to?
All of that is gonna switch over to City Hall. So all of the code enforcement and the park permits. It will be handled here. It's an unusual step that we actually had the police dealing with the park permit from the beginning.
Yeah.
But that will just shift over to us and we'll do it like we do other permits. But law enforcement will be involved in that. So if someone needs a park permit, they need a special permit for an event, they'll also be involved in it just like they were before.
Right,
And the sheriff's office.
we've already been involved in Crescent City ones, especially when you have one on the state road, because the statute requires that the sheriff be involved in those. And it's the same we do for any park permit in Putnam County, or any event in Putnam County. We just get forwarded through county, and now we get forwarded to the city for any input or suggestions we have. Or if you actually want a specific ops plan, we'll be happy to provide that. We do that for the county now.
Right.
And I just want some clarification. It has come up. And they've been very critical of both Michael Esposito and our police chief. But this certification is not the one that was in question. Michael, is it my understanding that that goes back to June of 2019 under a different administration when that certification was due?
All of those, and each office has a different recertification period, but yeah, they go back.
Okay, for the most part, it's back to June of 2019. So
Absolutely.
my question for you as a law enforcement, just so for clarification, so people understand, because it's also come up, well, if there is something that's missing, okay? If something is missing, can they just go ahead and take that training now and it be okay?
That's a great question, and I actually sought some additional legal advice from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement on that. So let's say that the police officer cannot find the backup. So just in full explanation, we maintain a system, ATMS, that's Automated Training Management System. And the agency is responsible for entering an officer's training into that system, but they are also responsible for making hard backup. And we get audited all the time. That's till he comes in and says, hey, I see Joe Wells has this training, let me see the proof. So that's what they did in this case. They asked for the proof. So if that proof cannot be located, the officer must be separated from the agency. And he must be separated and backdated to 2018. So any cases or tickets written backdated are null and void, and the city has a responsibility to notify the state attorney's office, who would then need to notify all defense attorneys in those cases that potentially the arrest in the case is not valid. So additionally to that, the officer then must be separated, get the training, and then rehire. There's requirements to rehire. If an officer is separated from agency for 1 day to do that, then the officer has to go back through a background test, has to have a new physical, new fingerprints and everything, if we separate for any period of time whatsoever. So if they can't prove the certification, then they need to be separated, backdated to those dates, get their training up to date, and then rehired by the police department. Correct.
So in effect, by the city manager doing all this stuff and getting FDLE involved, and we basically opened ourselves up to some serious lawsuits, because if the certification is backed up to 2019, then all the arrests, all court cases that have gone to with the sheriff's department, all of the counties, all those could be potential lawsuits for the city of Crescent City.
Bingo, yeah, we
So we
understand that.
can go broke based
If you
on,
don't mind, let me, ma'am, I beg to differ with you. I think it would be much worse if you hid this from the citizens. I think the city manager did exactly what he was supposed to do in bringing this to the surface.
so why didn't you find that in your audit of those records when the chief left in September of 2020?
So I don't know exactly what we audited or what we covered. I'd have to go back and do that. I wasn't personally involved in that. So I don't know. Again, what were we asked to look for? What was the nature of the audit? I'm not sure.
I don't know what was
Well,
asked.
Okay, yeah.
Can you, maybe the commission can tell us? Or the city manager, what was the audit for, what was requested,
that-
and why were the records not found then?
So when they came in, when we didn't have a police chief, I said, what's the status of the department? And I had the sheriff's office come in and.
I
they
know
will
we
tell
get
you-
evidence.
Excuse me?
I know we get evidence. When the
Well, you did 5 criteria, and it's all in that report, and that was up to you.
Yeah.
Something that I asked.
Report.
Okay,
So they came in and I said, okay, what happens? And they said, just like when Sheriff Deloach, before he came on, they do an assessment of the agency. I said, here's where it is. Records, I don't know, so I asked the experts, I asked the law enforcement people to come in and take a look at the department. Well, they looked at it and they came back with 5 criteria. One of them was how the records were kept. That was just part of it. So if the records aren't kept in a certain way, that leads to the next question of, okay, what are in those records? And then it talks about base certification. FDLE is the expert on that. I am not, and they are not.
No,
They weren't tasked to look,
at
at that. So FDLE would do that. And it's an honor system, correct?
It is until you get audited, yes.
It is until you get audited, or you have a legal issue. So
Correct.
if you had some kind of issue where a lawyer comes in and says, okay, I'm now putting that officer on the stand, I need to know his certifications, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, anybody could, it's public record. Anybody
Right, they can
come
pull the
in and
public record and say, are they up to date? That's how we got to that, but they weren't looking specifically for that. There wasn't anything that was asked. They said, okay, do an evaluation, and they came back with these criteria.
It wasn't one item.
Okay, it's getting late. Yes, Commissioner DeVito?
It is very late. It is 9 o'clock. We have not talked about anything on the city manager's reports and the issues that we
Okay,
have.
we're ready to
going
move
forward.
on. You've asked questions too here, so we're ready to move on. So if you're ready
This
to
is
move
not
on.
the agenda.
But do you want a report from Commissioner Wells, because he has the month report, if you want that? He'd be willing to give that to us as far as the activity over the last month. Would you like for him to give that as a police report?
I mean, it's totally up to you. I know if you want a crime or an update on the city for the last 30 days, fine. It's
I
not.
mean, we would,
Yes.
I'd like to hear.
while he's here, and then he
Yeah,
can,
while
and
he's
then
here.
they can leave. He's been up since 5 o'clock this
This
morning.
morning, we need
Working
to
on
That-
time.
All right, and then these are very brief. You know that I usually and concise. The sheriff's office handled 166 incidents within Crescent City in the last 30 days. Those are both citizen initiated and deputy initiated. Of those, 45% were deputy initiated, such as traffic stops, suspicious vehicles, follow-ups by detectives. Over that time period, there were 6 criminal events inside the city of Crescent City. The first was at 115 North Street, Winn-Dixie. This was an aggravated battery domestic violence case. This was a significant domestic violence that occurred. Victims advocates and domestic violence detectives responded to the scene. The victim was transported to domestic violence shelter, and the detectives were able to obtain warrants for aggravated domestic violence battery on the suspect. The suspect has since been arrested. This case is solved. The next was an arrest at 519 North Summit Street, the Ladies Club, when deputies were alerted to a subject that was causing a disturbance during an event held at the Ladies Club. The deputies located the suspect, determined that he was under the influence of alcohol. He refused to leave, caused the scene, and he was arrested for disorderly conduct. The third, 700 Huntington Road. This is a criminal mischief case. During a gathering at the house, one of the subjects became intoxicated and a little out of control. He ended up breaking a window and a television. That suspect was later arrested and charged with disorderly intoxication and criminal mischief. The fourth, 300 South Summit Street, the Bolero. This is a deputy initiating case when the deputy found a suspicious person who appeared to hide when he saw the patrol car. That resulted in a foot pursuit and a later arrest for multiple narcotics charges at 300 South Summit Street, Bolero. The next one is 510 Florida Avenue. This was another assault, but this was the subject had a previous domestic violence injunction. A warrant was obtained and that person has been arrested as well. The final, 115 North Summit Street. This is the only unsolved crime. This is where a lady had a prescription bottle inside her purse in her shopping cart. She turned for just a minute. And when she turned back around, the prescription bottle had been taken from her purse. The deputies were able to obtain video surveillance from the store. However, at this time, that suspect remains unidentified. The Criminal Investigation Bureau is conducting an ongoing investigation into the felony theft of controlled substance. So that's your short summary, unless you have any questions in the last 30 days.
Good job.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry it got so late. We appreciate it.
Would you like for us to remain, or are you okay?
I think we're.
The deputy, would you him to remain?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Sir?
No.
Okay.
Okay, additional reports and comments. Michael, you have something to share with us?
Yes, a few things. One of them is we're working, actually, Jason Shepherd from Midtown, we were working with him, we were working with Works on the next round of CDBG grants to look at some utility improvements. So we had met earlier today, we'll be kind of formulating that and work with our grants coordinator, Fox Enterprises, to try to. So you'll be seeing that in the future. Also, some surplus equipment we'll be putting on our website to sell, some vehicles and some other equipment, so you'll be seeing that also in the future.
Probably need to void Jay, you probably need to mute Jay.
Okay.
I did see Windstream has been putting in fiber optic cable. They contracted a company, I spoke to them, they're putting it all down South Prospect and across, they were going across Lemon. So that's encouraging.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And did you went to a meeting? Was it for broadband?
No.
Okay, I didn't know if that was the meeting that you had.
No.
Okay. Also, one of the things we talked about, how Lisa, Commissioner DeVito had talked about COVID, HVAC issues and what we can do. I talked to the county, I talked to the health department. They do individual units in each room to kind of combat that. They haven't gone the route of trying to get some expensive upgrades to HVAC. We've also got Public Works working on some kind of, if they have that we can put in there, each UV light or things like that to try to mitigate any kind of issues that we would have in our HVAC system. So we're working on that. I'm waiting for some information from the county. That's about it for right now.
We don't have an announcement.
Well-
Congratulations for your new job.
Excuse me?
We don't have congratulations for your new position.
Michael has tendered his resignation to us 60 days from yesterday. He's gotten a great opportunity. This is taking him with family. I believe your wife's sister is up there, and this is an exciting opportunity for him. It's not so much for us. Michael, we appreciate your leadership. You've been here for a tough year on everybody. Those that have been doing this for a long time and those that are new to it, especially with COVID and with everything else that you've been dealt this year. And so we just appreciate you staying strong and showing up every day and doing the best that you can. We do appreciate that. I know you've, is there anything that you need to share with us? Everything is good to go? Okay. That leaves us in a position where we've got to decide, we're gonna have to decide what we're going to do. That's a big decision. I guess we're gonna reach back out to Colin and see, with the amount of time that I believe it was a year. We're gonna pull that contract, but I believe we had a year with him.
It was a year, but he said specifically, and Commissioner West and Commissioner Banks may remember, that he would not be, hold us to an exact 365 days. So I think the sooner we reach out to him, the better. I thought that there were some bumps in the way he handled it. I mean, if he will, I think the deal was, if we went back, if Michael did not stay a year, more or less, we would not have to pay the fee, we would pay the expenses. I believe that is what the contract said. But personally, I thought there were bumps in the way he handled it. So anyway, but obviously we need a plan here. And it took quite a while to hire someone. And I remember at one point in our process of hiring, Alice McCoy, who recently bought a business here, you know, she's lived here part-time for a long time. She suggested at some point that we hire an interim city manager. And I think that that is what we are going to have to do. I don't think we will be hiring anybody in 60 days.
No, I don't either. We're gonna need some assistance in several different areas. We're gonna need some assistance with this transition from Michael. We're also gonna need some assistance with some legal assistance and transition from the police department and dissolving of that. And that's gonna require some legal expertise that can help us with that to make sure that we do it the correct way.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
can I say this?
Yes, sir.
I think really, Commissioner Vito, brought up about, part-time, not a part-time.
Interim.
Interim. And I think, I don't know whether the older fella that was here before was in Palatka,
The one from Chattahoochee, the gentleman from Chattahoochee,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think that's it.
Someone suggested that to me today, that maybe we possibly back out to him and see if he, you know, there's several places that we can reach out to.
Right, but I believe, isn't it the Florida Association of City Managers that you contact for available interim city managers? Because at one, we heard from them as we were trying to decide how to do a city manager search process. And I think they offer assistance with the search process. That is an option. But I believe that they're the ones that can provide you options for hiring an interim city manager. I think they have retired ones, you know, and frankly, that was a very nice gentleman, but he was already 90 years old at the time.
He was not 90.
He told us.
He was not 90.
He ain't 90 years old.
He was teasing.
Was he teasing?
Yeah, he was not.
Well,
90
whatever.
years old.
He wasn't young.
He
So
wasn't
anyway,
young.
All right. It's been a year, things change. I don't think we can see that he will be available.
But we're going to, this just came up, of course, yesterday.
Right.
And so we're going to get to work on this right away on Tuesday. Monday is a holiday, Tuesday.
Yeah, we really need to get on it.
Yes.
And see what kind of a plan that we can come up with. And we're also going to meet Michael and Jay is on also as far as with some legal help. Am I correct? Okay.
And actually, I have an observation. It's something that we need, I think, to consider asking for Michael, and I hope he will provide it. When Patrick Kennedy left, we did not do an interview with him, and we also did not ask him to provide a memo of where different projects were, what was accomplished, what was not accomplished. And I think that that is something that would be very helpful for us and as well as for the interim city manager and whoever else. So I'm hoping that while he is still here, that Michael will organize these things and give us a roadmap as to what's been done and what needs to be done in the future. Because I mean, Patrick did not leave us that.
No, I know, and I think Michael, having come into that, recognizes the importance of that because he's had to learn a lot and scramble and try to find a lot of things. And so I think that's very important.
Right, but I think we all need it. The commission needs it.
The commission needs it. We all need it.
The public. And I did have a couple of questions, very, very quick, about things for the city manager that are going on or not going on, or whatever.
Did you want to ask Michael?
Sure. may I
Okay,
do
as part
right
of comment, yes.
now? Okay. Michael, one of the things that I had asked in the past, and we didn't have a status of it recently, was the multi-use trail. Is that done?
Yes.
Okay, and I had asked about whether there would be any kind of a ribbon cutting or anything.
Not that I know of the county. No.
Well, can we ask them if we can have a ribbon cutting? Does anybody want a ribbon cutting? A lot of people don't know what that is.
I know what a ribbon cutting is.
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't specific. A lot of people don't understand what the trail is
I know, I understand.
and where it came
So we
from.
want to have a celebration, the opening, the grand opening, the final product, that the trail is here. And we
Right,
want to have a ribbon cutting.
Also, it
Okay.
occurs to me that there would be a newspaper story and it would actually explain, people think Crescent City spent $1 million on a sidewalk. I mean, that's part of whatever. Where else? I have received questions about the status of the bathrooms in the park. People are saying some are open, some are not open. Do we have a policy right now for the park restrooms?
We don't. So the policy, the bathrooms have been open during the day, and some of them, they get closed, especially if somebody goes in there and vandalizes them. So the Public Works Director has said, okay, well, if they go in there and vandalize them, we've been closing them. And usually for a period of time to try to fix them. But they've been open during the day, and they've been asked to close at night because they are unattended.
Right. And I know I called you once because the one down by Dexter Beach, the light was on and I wasn't gonna go ask who's in there. I mean, it was on for like 20 minutes or whatever. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I think it would be helpful if everyone could receive a copy of the resignation letter. You told us about it, face to face, which was very nice, but I think we could all use a copy of the letter. And there was something else, but I forget what it was. And then I have one commissioner issue, but, or maybe this is a Michael issue. I brought this up with Michael the other day. As you know, Rotary is not having catfish again for the second year.
Right.
And the Rotary Club, of which I am a member, is, you know, they're still trying to raise funds for scholarships, which is the main thing that Catfish does. So Catfish Weekend, first week of April, they're planning to have a smaller fish fry, probably at Winn-Dixie. And they are requesting, and I asked Michael about this, they can hang a banner in the park, kind of in commemoration of Catfish, to let people know that it's paused and that they can buy a catfish at another location. And I've asked them to write a letter and provide a copy of depiction of what the banner would look like. So, and I talked to Michael about that.
Okay,
So that's all I have.
okay, thank you. Ms. Burton, do you have any comments?
I've talked enough tonight.
You've talked enough tonight.
So help out.
Commissioner West. Okay, I will say, the fair is taking place. I just want y'all to know, I was in a meeting yesterday. The fair is taking place March 19th through the 27th. They've taken, and I can give you a copy of it if you want. Their CDC guidelines. They're encouraging mask wearing. They've scaled it down. Yes, sir, they did. And they've scaled it down a lot, but they just felt like they needed to go forward with it. Also, thankfully, to Commissioner DeVito and the RD Board, Arbor Day Foundation has recognized us once again as a 2020 Tree City USA. Woo! This is a good part of it, yes. On COVID, they've done over 3,000 first injections and 900 second injections. They're working through that list. They had over 10,000 people sign up. And they also are working on a plan to do homebound seniors. We know it's a big issue here in our community.
Yeah.
So J.R. Grimes said he would get with us as soon as they found out. And I think that's all that I have. We have, looks like right now our next meeting will be, we have a workshop on the 16th. Now, I just want to share with you, are we ready at this workshop on the 16th to go over at this current time? That is on our CRA and and projects and prioritizing. Are we ready on the 16th to go forward?
I thought, I thought we were gonna be dealing with the finance.
That's 25th.
That's the 25th.
That's 25th.
This is the one that, the last meeting that I believe Commissioner DeVito wanted a workshop on this, and Monday is a holiday, so I know Deb is going to probably be really scrambling to try to put this together for us on the 16th. We didn't take into account the 15th holiday. So,
We got that special meeting on the 24th.
and then also for the second reading, the final reading of the ordinance, we have that on the 24th, I think is where they have it potentially ready for, at 5:30 p.m.
So
So
what's happening on the 24th?
on the 24th, we will have to schedule, I think that's the time that they were looking at for, scheduling the second, the final reading of the ordinance.
Wait a minute.
I mean, us, that's what we were, because we have to advertise for 10 days. So if they got the advertisement in tomorrow, and then we move forward on the 24th, is everyone in favor of moving forth on the 24th and meeting at 5:30?
No,
Well-
we're going to finally abolish the police department before we finalize a contract.
We're gonna have the contract at the same time. We're gonna discuss contract prior to that. We will discuss the contract prior to that.
On February 24th,
on February 24th.
I don't think we're ready to do that.
Well, Lisa, I'll tell you what's gonna happen. Commissioner DeVito, I apologize, I should have addressed you as Commissioner DeVito.
That's okay.
Right now, if we don't move forward,
Yeah.
okay? Colonel Wells has told you they've already spent over $30,000.
Right.
The residents I've spoken to said do not want to give up that round-the-clock protection.
Right.
He is going to pull that round-the-clock protection if we don't move forward.
Well, we have serious issues here. We have to find a new city manager. We have a finance director. I will point out that we are not paying the chief of police right now. The salary for him was $54,000 a year. And I think it would be more than fair to compensate the sheriff for the time that they have put in, necessitated by us. And I don't see us, I don't want to rush the contract.
Okay.
Okay, we are talking about entering into a 3-year contract for a significant amount of money. And I don't see us pushing that and accelerating it when we do have the money to compensate the sheriff for the overtime. I think that this contract would be best left to the regular March meeting, because we got enough on our plate right now.
Okay, we can do the contract in March,
Well, the contract and the ordinance abolishing it.
and we can do the ordinance in February
Ridiculous. I
20th.
think we can do it in March.
So we can do the ordinance on February 4th, and then we can go forward with the contract in March. Is everyone in agreement with that?
No, I mean,
Well, okay, we're gonna put this out, I'm gonna put this out to the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so, because we, at this point in time, it's getting late and we need to wrap this up. So if we're going to meet on the 24th, is everyone in agreement that on the 24th, we are going to meet to take the final reading of this ordinance at 5:30?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
well,
Yes.
one thing, we don't have a motion, but we need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion.
In the milk, okay, so I make a motion that we have the final reading of the ordinance
Okay,
on the 4th
do we have a
of
second?
this month at 5:30.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Wait, you didn't ask for discussion.
Okay, discussion, do you,
Okay, so the discussion is, at that point, we will have abolished our police department and we'll have done what nobody wants to do, is just leave us up to the general care of the sheriff. And I would suggest that we take a little more time with this and wait till the March meeting and vote on the ordinance and the contract at the same time. And preferably, we would discuss the contract first.
okay,
And we are talking about a ballpark $500,000 contract, and that should not be rushed.
okay, thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Can I have a roll call, Deb? Deb,
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner
can I have a
Burton,
roll call?
Yes.
Commissioner Kane DeVito,
No.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Aye.
Mayor Myers.
Okay, the ayes have it, so moved. Yes, Diane?
If Mr. Garner is not available as an city manager, Mr. Banks, you have a very close relationship with the League of Cities. Would you be comfortable contacting them to see if they could recommend an interim city manager?
I'll call, I sure will.
Yeah.
I'll do that, I'll call.
Thank you.
We're gonna be reaching out to all.
Yeah, thank you for that idea.
Definitely to the League of Cities.
Yeah, cause we
Thank
pay
you.
them.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Diane. Okay. Again, we're gonna come back to the 16th, the workshop on the 16th.
Right.
Does the commission want to go forward with that workshop on the 16th? Or do we want to, at this time, extend that out? We had to extend out our magistrate, unfortunately. And that, I would like to see us for that the first part of March. Do we want to spend a day? Do we want to take up, twice in 1 week and take both of these issues up? I just know that we've had a lot coming at us
Yeah.
right now, and
Yeah.
I'm concerned this is very important. We go to this workshop next Tuesday. I think it's very important that we all have a clear mind and we kind of have gotten some things, zoomed out a little bit. And we have some more direction as to where we're gonna be with our city manager at that time. So is everyone in favor of us picking another date in March?
Yeah, I think we,
That would be fine, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner DeVito, did you have a question?
Well, I have an observation. Many cities in Florida, cities and counties,
Mhm.
have retreats and workshops where they just have a discussion. City of Tallahassee has done this. City of Platte has done this. The county commission just set priorities. They set 2 main priorities. One of them was tourism. I think that we need a space of time where we can get together and not have a specific agenda and just share ideas. We need a little breathing space here. Because what I've seen us do for the past 2 years is not have direction, just to kind of go along from issue to issue, whatever bumbles up or the city manager brings up. But this would be a time for us to get together on an informal basis with no particular item on the agenda and talk about what we see as priorities for the city. And I think it's a particularly good time to do it because we're going to be talking about the future and hiring a city manager. So it's a good time for a relaxed opportunity for discussion and just to say what's on our mind and not worry about voting on any particular business.
Absolutely, that's what we're gonna be doing. And I agree with you. I think we need to do that. I also suggest, and I think this is important, very, very important, and I'm learning a lot in these 3 months, that we as the commission, we need to have field trips. And we need to go out and we need to spend a day with our public works, or not a day, but just some time with our public works. We need to spend some time with our utilities and just kind of get a better understanding as to what they're dealing with and what goes on in their day-to-day function.
We've
I
done
think
that in
that's-
the past, and that's a good idea.
Yeah, I just really think that that's important, and so that's something too that, of course, we've got carts, and also I think that's important as well, is that we have a golf cart tour and that we go through the town together and we kind of look at some things and identify some issues that we see out there. Because there's a lot of things that are going on that oftentimes you don't see when you're in your car, but you see it when you're walking, you see it when you're in a golf cart.
Right. So Mayor, that time on the 16th is when we can talk about stuff like that. It's a time for us just to, and I think it's a good time because we're going to have to be talking about very specific things in future. And this is a time for us to just talk about general things and creative ideas like you've just had. It's really a creative time.
Commissioner Banks.
yeah, I don't think we can do that. So, you gotta remember that.
Oh, we'd have to advertise.
No,
We have to
Field
advertise.
trip is
Oh,
noticed, just
okay, just long we
Yeah,
advertise.
we have to advertise it so that all the residents can follow around and they can see
Okay.
everything we're
I was gonna say,
saying.
cause you're gonna be
No,
out.
I'm not gonna put us in that position.
Y'all
No,
gonna be out there by
no.
yourself.
No, I'll be out there by myself.
I know you're gonna
Mr.
see that.
Banks, Mayor, if I could remind him, remember when y'all drove Deb and her recorder out to Dexter Beach and some others, right?
The dog park.
And I paddled up as a member of the public in my kayak and I forget what you were talking about, but it was about Dexter Beach. And Deb was out there in the hot sun.
Yeah.
So,
So I think
and it was all noticed.
I'd
All
like to
right,
see us
so-
do some positive and go forward.
Okay, so now our next meeting is, Cause we talking about a whole bunch of meetings, when our next meeting is now?
Well, that's what we're talking about right now, is the workshop on the 16th.
The
So,
16th.
do we
Okay.
want to cancel the 16th, or do we want to meet?
No, no, no.
I'm gonna
No,
leave
we
that.
wanna meet.
Huh? We're
We
gonna
wanna
meet?
meet.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want
Now,
to-
what time?
So that's 1 o'clock
1
on
o'clock.
Tuesday afternoon. Does that work for you?
I hope it do, I gotta look at my.
I hope it does too. Your busy schedule.
Yeah.
So basically in February, as I understand it, workshop on the 16th at 1 PM,
Yes,
Wednesday, the 24th at 5:30
5:30.
PM.
Yeah.
That is a meet for a vote.
Yes.
And then on the next day, on the 25th at 6 PM, a special, I'm sorry, I can't read my writing. A special meeting to discuss finance director options.
Yes.
Is that how we got that? Okay. So we got 3 more things in February.
Yes. We're gonna get as much out of Michael as we possibly can in these 60 days.
And Deb.
And he probably will not speak to me tomorrow. Okay, are we done? Any more